Alrighty. Hello everyone.
Hello.
Cool man. Yep. Good to be here. Good to be back. You're probably wondering why we're doing this and why we're doing it this way. You guys are probably expecting like a stream or something like that. Not necessarily about this topic, but we haven't done a stream in a while.
Yeah.
And we haven't been reviewing too many things lately. I haven't been posting as much. Cool man hasn't been posting as much. The reason being, we're too busy, right, cool man? Life,
yeah.
Life finds a way.
Yeah.
to keep us from posting.
It finds a way to get in the way.
Yeah. Granted, I'm working on, like, people were expecting a really big Star Wars video from me. That's still coming. That is actually well and truly on the horizon. Most of it's already done. Cool man can attest to that because he's been helping give me feedback on that.
Yep.
And there's going to be another big video after that. It's probably going to take months, but I've already started that one too. But meanwhile, there's all these video topics we want to do, but we just can't find time for. Like I wanted to talk about. Obviously, I made an exception for Deadpool and Wolverine because it's a topic I actually had some investment in, given the fact. I mean, I quit the MCU at the start of Phase 4. Yeah, start of Phase 4. No Way Home was my quitting point. And I only came back for, I think I got dragged to Thor Love and Thunder.
One last ride.
Yeah, that's Hugh Jackman's role as Wolverine. It's going to be
one last ride.
It's going to turn to the last Fast and Furious movie, which will never come because we're just, why are we here, cool man? Just to suffer. Yeah. So I made an exception for Deadpool and Wolverine. But obviously, like I'd like to talk about, we both would like to talk about, Alien Romulus and Gladiator 2 when it comes out. And yeah, that's interesting. I'm curious. I mean, my expectations aren't too high, but I am curious as to how that movie is going to go. I don't think it's worth watching, even though it's completely unnecessary. But I mean, we'll see how that goes. But the point being, I don't have time to make a 2-hour review or a 1-hour review, or I think I've forgotten how to make a 20-minute review of a movie at this point. And it kind of just, there's not enough time for it. So, and because I want to get the projects I'm working on done, Coolman wants to get the projects he's working on done, and we don't have enough time to review everything for you guys, and we still probably won't review everything, but at least this way, it kind of gives us the means to get our thoughts across to you and entertain you and provide you some content, despite the fact that we can't make full-fledged videos for you about every single topic that we want to. And the reason we're doing it as a video recording, so again, we're still going to do streams from time to time whenever we can, but we want to do it on more immediate topics. So, like, for example, God forbid, if Marvel acts as like 10,000 employees out of the blue to cut costs and save money because they're, with the exception of Deadpool and Wolverine, they're losing a shit ton of fucking money at the moment. We'll talk about that on stream, maybe. But like that's the kind of subject matter we want to save for streams. Whereas if we're just talking about a movie and reviewing it and discussing it, we want to be as clear and concise as possible. And we've been criticized in the past for, going on tangents, which we still probably will here. And we've been, we've been criticized for, letting super chats get in the way when we're trying to get a point across, and we'll stop the discussion cold and answer some super chats. The good thing about having this as a recording is I can edit all that crap out and keep it focused as much on the subject matter as possible, meaning it's a better viewing experience for all of you guys. Also, people will probably still want to send super chats and, connect with us and ask us questions or whatever. You still can. You can leave a comment, or you can leave a super thanks if it strikes you. You can, and we'll get to it later. And we'll comment, or I'll comment, he'll comment, we'll both comment. And it's still you can still talk to us, still reach out to us, and we'll answer any questions. But I think this was the best idea in terms of doing ongoing reviews that are much easier to produce and much more fun. In all honesty, it's fun having someone else to shoot the shit about a movie with.
Yeah.
And just get our thoughts across to you that way. So hope you enjoy. Let us know what you think of this new format. And if you'd like to see more, and if you want us to talk about any other movies this way. They don't have to be new releases. They could be other movies, perhaps. Let us know. We will take it into consideration. Okay. So, Deadpool and Wolverine, cool, man. What did you think?
Oh, okay. So this one was a doozy for me because I've watched all these older movies and stuff. You got me into watching the Blade movies and stuff like that. And
Damn straight.
Yeah, and so but I hadn't watched any of the Deadpool movies because I'm sure you can see from my icon, I am a Deadpool fan.
He is.
And I do not like Ryan Reynolds' portrayal of Deadpool. I find him utterly insufferable. So I knew I was never going to like it. I never watched any of the Deadpool movies. So then NOMZ is like, I want to talk about Deadpool and Wolverine with you. And I'm like, but it's the third movie in the Deadpools. And then I'm like, okay, so I had to watch them. And I was live posting about in our DMs as I was watching them. And you just came into like hundreds of posts of me just getting continually angrier.
I woke up. I woke up because we're in two different time zones. So you're up ranting. I'm just waking up groggy as fuck. I turn on my computer in the morning and then I just see like 100 messages and I'm like, what the hell happened? And I read it's like, oh, I see, he's watching the Deadpool films.
Yeah, and I'm just so pissed off. So, but I'm glad I watched them because it gives a lot of context for why Deadpool and Wolverine is really bad. Because even obviously on its own, it's got its problems, but being the third Deadpool movie, it really has a lot of stuff, especially because it's one of the big points that I was thinking about when I watched this movie was like how Vanessa acts. Well, I would not have known that was an issue had I not watched the first two movies, when the second movie is so heavily reliant on the plot point of Wade and Vanessa want to start a family. They want to, she's like, I want to have kids. And they're like, okay, we're really going to take this relationship seriously. So you're like, okay, so they're living together. They want to have kids. They're probably going to get married. Like, this is a really big deal. And then she dies. And then later at the end of the movie, once he gets Cable's time travel device, he goes back in time and saves her. Yeah. Okay. So then you would think from there, they would have their family, right? And then Deadpool and Wolverine's like, well, actually, she doesn't really think he's that good. And he has to prove himself by doing something, even though
they turn him into an MCU simp.
Yeah.
They turn him into a giant Avengers fanboy to suck off their own dick. That's Marvel. And they did it at the expense of Deadpool's character and Wade and Vanessa's relationship. And that was one of the things that really annoyed me even on my first viewing. Because I'm like, cool, man, in my Deadpool video, if you've watched it, I say, I am a big fan of Ryan Reynolds' portrayal as Deadpool. I love both Deadpool 1 and 2. And I tolerated parts of Deadpool and Wolverine, even though I had to groan incessantly throughout my watch through on the first and second time of how utterly shallow and fucking all over the place it is. I've said this before. The movie is utter trash wrapped in fan service. And the Wade and Vanessa relationship is a prime example of why that is, because the whole reason that's done is to provide a reason for why Deadpool wants to join the Avengers in the first place and come into the MCU. And they have Cable's time travel device all of a sudden be a multiverse hopper, because otherwise how the fuck does he get to Earth 616? Well, Marvel likes to pretend the MCU is Earth 616.
That's so annoying to me. It's Earth 1999. It was firmly established. Even Across the Spider-Verse got that right. And you remember, so the 616 number was first introduced in Far From Home with Mysterio, who was lying. He was making it up. And then they're like, no, actually, he just happened to be right.
Gosh. They want to be known as the official proper Marvel timeline. Again, the sacred timeline that is head and shoulders above everything that came before or after, including the comics, including the Raimi Spider-Man films, including the Fox X-Men films, blah, blah, blah. Which really, I mean, I understand that's a meta joke. It's like they're purposely saying, the sacred timeline, because they know people criticize them for treating the MCU, again, for sucking their own dick and treating the MCU as holier than thou. That's the meta joke. I get it. But it's, again, a lot of the problem with the humor in this movie was that it was trying to have its cake and eat it too. Which, again, and I said this in the video, was a really big turnoff for me personally. It's why I laughed at a lot of the jokes that were kind of self-contained within the movie, even if they were just shallow pop culture references. But anything that had to do with the meta, you know, it was a coin toss with me. Some of it would land. Some of the jokes I'd be like, that's not funny because you're doing it anyway. You're contributing to the very thing you're making fun of, and you expect me to laugh, and that's not how it's supposed to work. It's like the whole reason why the first Deadpool movie was funny, at least for me, was that Deadpool was kind of like the outlier, the again, no pun intended, the rogue superhero who does things his own way. And he was making fun of all the cliche superheroes like the X-Men, the Avengers, et cetera, et cetera. It's just another reason why a lot of his bullshit about I want to be an Avenger is stupid in Deadpool and Wolverine.
Yeah, like, because it's such a weird switch that got flipped, where it's like, he's kind of like, okay, I work with them sometimes, but I'm my own person. I'm not going to follow the rules of the X-Men. I'm not going to follow any strict rules. If I see someone bad, I'm going to shoot them. Like, he doesn't really care about the consequences of that, because he is firmly in that anti-hero. And especially by the time you get to Deadpool 2, he's doing the wrong thing for the right reasons. That's his brand of anti-heroism. Because obviously, like, when he killed that one guy at the mutant abuse school or whatever it was,
the institute, we'll call it.
Yeah,
the institute,
like, that was done for the right reason, but obviously things would have been so much simpler if he had actually listened to Colossus and they did something like, I don't know, get Professor Xavier involved instead of him immediately going trigger happy. But I'm like, it's at least with this version of Deadpool, it's understandable why he would make that decision. And to suddenly take that Deadpool and be like, he now needs to join the Avengers because he needs to be better. And I'm like, but wasn't that the entire point of, like, X-Force? Like, you did have your own thing. And I presumed he went back in time and saved them like he did with Vanessa.
Peter.
And Peter.
He did say Peter,
Yeah, and then I'm like, okay, so, like, sure, but, like, you also have Cable, right? You had Cable, you had Domino. Those are the main ones. And you're thinking, okay, so they're kind of become his new team, right? And then in this movie, they're like gone. It doesn't have anything. And I'm like, well, and I'm sorry, but, like, where is Cable? Right? Because they made a big deal about Cable staying in the past, even though they fixed his time machine. But, like, that was kind of the thing of he's fine with not going to the future as long as it means his family is safe. And I'm like, okay. And then after you went out of your way to spend 90% of the movie of them fighting, and then the last 10% is them teaming up together at the end. And then at the end, when Cable even uses one of the charges he has left to save Deadpool's life as a thank you for saving his family, that's like, okay, he's there. And they really bonded over that. And I'm like, where is Cable in this movie? That's the one.
The budget wouldn't hold it or something.
Yeah. Well, then I'm like,
okay, no, sorry. It was better spent on Jennifer Garner as Elektra for no fucking reason.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing that's so annoying to me. I was like, you can't tell me that getting Josh Brolin cost you more than Wesley Snipes, Chris Evans, Hugh Jackman, Jennifer Gardner, all the Channing Tatum, all these big like cameos or appearances. You can't tell me you couldn't spare for Cable. Like, and especially because if there was any one character from the previous two movies that I think had to be in a third one, it would be Cable. They made such a big deal about him being in the second movie. And Deadpool and Cable are like an iconic duo in the comics. They're both iconic, like, 90s anti-heroes. Yeah. And I'm like, okay. Like, even in the Deadpool video game, because I just recently played the Deadpool video game with Angel, and and Cable's in it. Cable's like one of the main characters from the X-Men in that movie or in that game. So I'm like, it's a big like deal for them, and then he's just gone, and they don't even explain it. Like, they just continue on as if that never happened.
Yeah. And here's another thing, like, and the more you talk about it, the more I'm coming to realize, like, that, like, I think High Top said, and this is a great point in his video, and I'd highly suggest checking out High Top's video on, I think it's called The Multiverse Killed Deadpool and Wolverine. It's a very good video, very underrated. And he was catching a lot of flack in the comments by Marvel Sims that really pissed me off, because like he was spot on for most of that, if not all of that. And he basically says, you know, we're not going to, and High Top basically says, in regards to Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman and Marvel saying, we're not going to touch Logan. We're not going to affect Logan's death. Yeah, Logan still happened. We're not retconning that. Great. But then they resurrect Wolverine from the multiverse and, you know, bring in another Wolverine. Obviously, Hugh Jackman, same actor and everything. And yeah, to quote what High Top said, they basically brought in the Cliff Notes version of the Wolverine from Logan. He has basically the same dilemma, the same arc, if you want to call it that, but with none of the nuance. He's just wearing a shiny costume for fan service. But also, not only that, and to be fair, I expected as much from any Deadpool and Wolverine movie, that they were going to fight and they were going to be at odds with each other. And it was going to be like a Lethal Weapon buddy cop action comedy, which, to be fair, I was hoping for. I wanted that. But we kind of already got that with Deadpool and Cable in the second Deadpool, and it was great. It was great, and I said this in my video. The stuff that's like that in Deadpool and Wolverine is pretty darn good. Like I enjoyed it for what it was. I was expecting as much, so I'm not going to fault the movie for going the fan service route on that. The problem I have with Deadpool and Wolverine going the fan service route is that they basically gave little to no fucks about anything else, and they just shoehorned everything into the proper place on the chessboard in order to facilitate that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like again, Wade and Vanessa, which again started this whole discussion, was the probably one of the biggest examples of that, and happens like right immediately. And of course, he meets Happy Hogan, and they have their little discussion about what it means to be an Avenger and how the Avengers are the gold standard. Certainly not fucking anymore.
Yeah.
The new Avengers. I put that joke in. I love that I put that joke in my Deadpool video. It's like, what happened to you, man? You used to be cool. And it's got the original Avengers, and it's got Bart saying, it's like, nah, you've changed, man. It's got the new Avengers, She-Hulk, Falcon, Captain America, Shang-Chi. It's like, who gives a fuck? And it's true. It's accurate. I didn't like another example of the meta humor that, Deadpool being Marvel Jesus and, saving the MCU, but they also say that, Deadpool, you can finally matter by joining the sacred timeline. It's like, you guys have fucking nothing in this franchise without Deadpool, Wolverine, and all of the assets you fucking bought from Fox and you're borrowing from Sony. Like, get fucked. Matter? Without these guys, your fucking franchise is worth nothing, and you know it. Again, another example of having their cake and eating it too. They're like, the multiverse kind of sucks. Can we just give it a rest? It's been nothing but misses so far.
Oh my gosh, that was
and then it has like Soy Pool say like, I think it's been steadily great since Endgame. So it's like, okay, you're acknowledging that the multiverse is shit, despite contributing to the multiverse problem. And you're mocking the people that were defending you and your shitty ass Marvel Phase 4 by having a stand-in for them with Soy Pool saying, I think it's been steadily great since Endgame. It's like, fucking pick a lane.
Yeah.
Just pick a lane and stick to it. You can't have your cake and eat it too and still expect me to find it funny.
Yeah.
Again, that's not what the original two Deadpool movies did. At least for the most part, they didn't do that.
Oh yeah, and that's something whenever the previous two Deadpool movies took shots at the Fox movies, right? They did make some pretty pointed jokes at how bad they were and how badly Fox had messed up, how bad Deadpool or Wolverine Origins was, right? How bad that was, and how confusing the timelines are. Where even after they quote fixed things, Days of Future Past. It's just like the joke in the first movie. It's McAvoy or Stewart. these timelines are so confusing.
Okay, and pause. Sorry to cut you off, but just to be clear to everyone, you're talking about the first Deadpool movies making fun of themselves and the past Fox movies, not Deadpool and Wolverine doing that.
Right? Yeah. That's what I'm talking about. The older movies did that.
Yeah,
where they are actually making jokes, and at least at the time when they started, they were not making these jokes in hindsight. Because Deadpool and Wolverine is making all these jokes and pointed jabs at the Fox stuff in hindsight. They've bought it. They've ended all of that. There's no future for those for any of those movies, even if people would want them. Right? Like that was honestly the meta thing that's so annoying. It's like, there's no future for them. I'm like, yeah, because you ended it. But like the original movies, like they still made jokes about it. They made like pointed jokes about how Fox had screwed up. Fox was allowing them to make jokes about them without coming in, because you can tell like in Deadpool and Wolverine, the meta humor will occasionally crack jokes, but it's mostly at the expense of the Fox characters or the previous other ones.
True. Yeah. No, they never. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. But more to your point, they never ever take shots at the Avengers, or hardly. They because Deadpool would poke fun of the Avengers, but all of a sudden he's an Avengers sip.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing, is now that this is a Disney made movie, suddenly any jokes about the MCU are vague, right? Oh, things they haven't been as good. Maybe the multiverse is a little tired. But we're doing it right here, right? We're doing it fine. I'm like, but they never make any jokes. Like if they had made pointed jokes about No Way Home, about Multiverse of Madness, and actually made fun of those, like if they brought in a Patrick Stewart as Professor X, and then Deadpool looks at the camera and being like, hey guys, don't worry, we won't kill him like they did in Multiverse of Madness.
That would actually be kind of,
because his death was something that frustrated people in Multiverse of Madness, because they were like, every time we see him, he dies. Stop killing Professor X for the 6th time. And then but I'm like, but that would have been a joke at the MCU's expense, except now they can't do it. And like you referenced with Nice Pool, where they had to have
Soy Pool. It's Soy Pool. Sorry,
So he has to come in and go, it's been great since Endgame, because it's like they couldn't even allow the joke to sit without, I could almost just feel Kevin Feige be like, no, you can't say that. You can't say that about my movies. And then they're like, okay, well, this guy comes in and says it's actually not that bad. And be like, okay, that's fine. Because they'll never allow those kinds of jokes to really like be done. And I'm like, and that's something that, and people will say, oh, they didn't tone down Deadpool and Wolverine. I mean, yes, it's still violent. They still swear. They drop F-bombs all the time. But like a lot of little details have been sanded down. The actual kinds of jokes they make about the movies, they don't make as many like jokes about the quality of the modern movies. Just, oh, we're going to crack jokes about those older movies. They don't have any references to drugs, which I don't think is that big of a deal, but it was something that they kept making cocaine jokes.
Are you sure about that? I'm pretty sure they have references to cocaine with Blind Owl. Is that her name? Blind Owl?
I don't remember, but like like you remember they made a bunch of those jokes. I didn't think they were funny, but like if they were in jokes in here, then like, because she was only in the movie for like 2 scenes. Same with
they put that on they put basically every character that was relevant or meant anything to Wade on the back burner. They put them in the background. They were just like, this is just going to be Deadpool and Wolverine, which I'm not too upset about, because I was expecting Deadpool and Wolverine and I wanted that to be the focus. And again, I can at least say Marvel kind of read the room on that. But I will say this, I am glad, with the exception of Wade and Vanessa breaking up, I am glad that like most of those characters kind of came back, and that Deadpool has like a nice kind of, odd family dynamic around him, as a support group. And, again, with the exception of Cable being mysteriously absent. And I will give Marvel full credit and say, thank fuck TJ Miller didn't come back. Fuck TJ Miller. And you pointed out to me that he was in some sort of controversy or whatnot, and I was just like,
well,
oh,
I think Angel pointed that out. I actually didn't
sorry.
know. I didn't know about all those details, which means that's like, oh well, I actually now have. I've always thought he was annoying. I didn't know he was an actual like scumbag.
Yeah, no, I was just like, you're like, I mean, I won't get into the details of the controversy, but you're just like, yeah, she was just like, NOMZ, you know that he's been going through this big ordeal after this controversy happened, and I'm like, oh, I just thought the guy was a fucking moron and a shitty actor, and I couldn't fucking stand him. Fucking annoying. Even Michael Bay, bless him. Like, say what you want about Michael Bay. Like, I don't hate the guy. I don't like all his movies. I certainly have problems with a number of them, but I do. He does have his moments of gold, and the whole like I think it was T.J. Miller himself that pointed this out in an interview. It's like Michael Bay on the set of Transformers 4 is like, TJ, we hired you to be funny. You're not being funny. Be funny or I will kill you off. There's 300 people here and you're not making any of them laugh. He's just scolding him for being a fucking tool. He can't make anyone laugh. He's not funny at all.
No,
how did he get work?
I have no idea.
How the fuck did he get work? The fact that prick was in the Emoji Movie, the lead in the Emoji Movie, makes me want to change my icon. No joke. I'm like, I mean, the smiley emoji icon for me was just, I mean, it was just the simplest thing I could think of. That's why I kept it. And people seem to like it, so I kept it. All right, cool. But at the same time, like, TJ Miller taints that for me. That's how much I hate him. I can't stand the guy. And thankfully, he wasn't in Deadpool and Wolverine. I give the movie top marks there. And I am happy that they did keep, they didn't just completely forget about the Deadpool alumni characters. They did put them in the background more than they probably should have. But at least Wade still had that, had that nice atmosphere surrounding him, supporting him. Again, they just shouldn't have broken up him and Vanessa. That was stupid. That was bullshit. And it was just to, again, stroke their own ego.
Yeah. Well, and it's so weird because when you watch this movie, it's a lot of the front end of it is anachronistic. It's out of order, where it's like they start with something and then they go back and they're like, actually, this happened before, and then this happened after, and then this happened before. And it's like, yeah, because when we were talking about the stuff with Vanessa, that technically that is chronologically the first stuff that happens in the movie. And then all of a sudden, when he gets rejected from the Avengers, instead of doing anything else, he decides he's going to become a used car salesman. And then it's only then afterwards, really, when the TVA come in, that he actually is like, oh, I'm gonna do stuff. And I'm like, okay, so like, I know when we talked, you talked about like the required watching for this movie, but like it's actually so much worse than you said, because not only do you need to watch Loki to know what the TVA is, like you do need to watch all of the other X-Men movie. You need to watch the Blade movies. You need to watch Daredevil and Elektra. You need to watch.
That's true. Yeah,
all this other stuff.
I should have mentioned that. I mean, look. The cameos don't really. We'll get to the cameos.
Well, but
they don't really have. That's one of the problems I have with the cameos. They serve virtually no story purpose.
Well,
But again, the shine of those cameos is lost if, again, like you said, you don't watch the other movies. So it's like, who the fuck is this guy? Who the fuck's that? Who's this bitch?
Well, like they're entirely based on you knowing all this stuff from all those other movies, because they don't have time to talk about the other 10 characters that show up for 3 minutes. So it's just like, and then you also need to know about the canceled Gambit movie from years ago.
Oh, can we get into that for a second?
Yeah,
I've had many fucking brainlets come at me in the comments of the video being like, well, didn't you know this, NOMZ? You obviously don't know anything, because Gambit was meant to happen with Channing Tatum, and Ryan Reynolds gave Channing Tatum a chance to fulfill his dream by being Gambit in Deadpool and Wolverine. Right, and that fixes the movie how, motherfucker? You dumb as dog shit, dipshit, dumb fuck.
And what's so annoying with this is, aside from Channing Tatum being not that good of an actor and not good enough to pull off Gambit, like, who was clamoring to see Gambit And you know what would have been better and would have actually fit into the themes of the second chances? They got the actor who played Gambit in X-Men Origins Wolverine.
I was gonna say, thank you. You know what was I gonna say? You know what's funny about the whole X-Men Origins Wolverine Gambit that was played by Taylor Kitsch, if I'm pronouncing that right, is in the spirit of meta jokes. Like, and he was way more fucking cool as a character. I don't know too much about Gambit, but I fucking liked Taylor Kitsch's portrayal of the character way more than Channing Tatum's. Channing Tatum felt like, he looks like a sore thumb. He stuck out like one too. Fucking, I was like, why is he talking in that weird accent? Why is he so robotic and he just spoke weird, looked weird?
Well,
and I was like, no, Taylor Kitsch was way better. Bring him back. Yes, they can poke fun at X-Men Origins by doing that. But also, what's funny is, like, Taylor Kitsch did a movie with Blake Lively, who's in the real world Ryan Reynolds' wife. And they did a pretty raunchy, like, sex scene together in the movie. I think it's called Savages. And, like, in the spirit of being meta, Deadpool could have said, "Keep your hands off my wife," or something like that. You know what I mean? Like,
he should have slapped him. He said, "Keep my wife's name out your mouth."
Yeah, exactly. Like, they could have, like, so having Taylor Kitsch come back would have been far more humorous for the meta jokes than some fucking obscure point about Channing Tatum not getting his Gambit movie that no one really gave two shits about and would have probably been terrible anyway. Like, seriously. And then again, like, you have no idea. I've had so many people comment and freaking just be up in arms about the whole, well, didn't you know that about Channing Tatum? It's like, these people, man, there's no cure for being a fucking moron.
Well,
seriously.
Like even if you didn't know, the fact that you didn't know that also just kind of lends to the fact that it's such a stupid joke to be like, wow, it's that one guy who never actually played the character in a whole, like, crowd of people who are coming back after not playing these characters for 15, 20 years. I'm like, that's out of place.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely. And it's just like, again, and I agree with you. Thanks for pointing that out to me. Like, I could have gone more into the whole, and to be clear, there's a lot more I could have said about Deadpool and Wolverine. Like, that 2-hour video, that was the abbreviated version of what I had to say. I didn't want to, and I told you were begging me to say more. You were begging me to say, what about this? What about that? I said, look, the Deadpool movies, and I acknowledge this, guys, they're more lighthearted than most other Marvel movies. I get that, going through them with a fine-tooth comb is a bit redundant. You don't need to do that. But there are some pretty obvious things wrong with Deadpool Wolverine that I had to address. And he was begging me to say more when I was being actually quite lenient.
Like,
and one of the things, sorry, more to your point, and one of the things I definitely should have gone more into is the whole watch factor for needing to get all of this movie and having it land. And by the way, and someone else brought this up, I can't remember who, the humor in this movie is so current year that it's going to lose its charm in like 2 or 3 years. People are like, what the hell is he talking about? What's he referencing? And one of those instances, I'll point it out to you, was the whole, the moment in the opening of the film where he bounces the sword into the TVA guy's mouth, and then he walks up to him and he's like, keep my country's name out of your fucking mouth. And then he pulls his sword out, and then I was like, "What the?" I was kind of like, "Oh, the joke is that he's from Canada. Okay, cool." I had no idea that the joke was actually referring to Will Smith slapping Chris Rock at the fucking Oscars. And I was like, "Really?" I was like, "Oh, okay, that's what it's referencing."
Well, yeah, and
I almost forgot about that.
Yeah. Well, and then they make some also. They have like lines like "Let this man cook," and I'm just sitting like, "Ew, why are you just throwing in modern meme jokes?" Like, these are jokes that will age terribly. Like, once let them cook stops being like a common meme, then people are gonna go back and watch this movie, and it's gonna be hella dated. And I used hella there on purpose.
Yeah, no, it's gonna be a very dated movie come 2 or 3 years from now. It will. So yeah, back to the TVA. Having them in this movie again to bring Deadpool into the MCU is, again, it's so unnecessary. And I go through this in my video. It's like they could have done so many other things that would have made, again, not necessarily to bring Deadpool into the MCU. He was fine outside of the MCU. In fact, he was much better off outside of the MCU. And they could have actually had the MCU, and they could have had, the Fox X-Men film universe still going. And they could have had 2 franchises. Yeah. And they could make more money off it. But no, they've got to bring Deadpool into the MCU, and they've got to have everything, because they can't make their own Deadpool. They know that. They can't make their own Wolverine. So they'll just buy the fucking franchises that have the actors that people like, and they'll toss them into their franchise by whatever contrived fucking bullshit reason they can manufacture in order for it to, at the surface level, make sense until you use a plural number of brain cells. And then they'll call it a day, and they'll be like, yeah, just accept that. And then the Marvel faithful, ever so ready to bend over and let Marvel have their way with their rectal passage, will insist that you buy it too. No, sir. No, sir. They could have had him go back in time with Cable's time travel device and team up with Wolverine in the past. Or they could have had, what was the second thing I said he could have done? They could have just had him team up with Logan.
In his current time.
In his current time, because Logan hadn't happened. It wasn't going to happen for another 5 years because they stupidly had Deadpool and Wolverine take place in 2024.
And then, as something I brought up, and I know you didn't delve into the timelines, but Logan confirms that the Logan that we see there is from the original timeline that was last seen in Days of Future Past, where everyone was dying and it was horrible. Yeah. And this is basically a Logan that survived, where everyone else is just dead, so he's just miserable and broken. And then that is a different timeline than the Days of Future Past new timeline.
Yeah, that was meant to be a different thing. It wasn't meant to be in the Days of Future Past timeline.
And then Days of Future Past also has Deadpool. I looked this up. Deadpool was in that until the end of Deadpool 2, when he goes back in time and saves Vanessa, creating another split of the timeline. Which means this Deadpool is multiple times removed from Logan. But then they have to come up with the stupid anchor being. And all these movies want to come up with their own big multiverse rules. You had canon events in Across the Spider-Verse, Into the Spider-Verse. Into the Spider-Verse said that people can't be in another dimension for more than a couple of weeks before their bodies start falling apart. Oh, and then Multiverse of Madness says incursions, which means that if Deadpool brings another Logan to his universe, he's going to create an incursion and his timeline is going to implode anyway. Which I'm like,
isn't he gonna fuck up the other? And if we're assuming Across the Spider-Verse made itself MCU canon, so if we take another person out of the fucking someone else's universe, isn't that universe gonna miss out on a few canon events and fucking unravel and collapse?
Yeah, and that's the thing, is they have not cared about anything. They just throw whatever rules they want for this, because despite the fact that when you actually think about it, an anchor being is the most illogical thing that you've ever heard, because that would mean that every single universe is going to die if one particular person. So why is it Logan? Why? Okay, they make the meta joke is, oh, Logan is the most important thing. He's the only thing that was keeping them alive. I'm like, okay, but what about the MCU, right? Does the MCU have an anchor being? Is it dying?
Tony Stark died. He wasn't he the anchor being?
Oh yeah, and then it's like, so what? So what? How does this affect anyone else? And I'm like, okay, well, they didn't think about that, because they were just like, we need. Even though, and I said this before, and I said you could have literally just had Deadpool want to form his own ultimate discount Avengers. If he creates the new X-Force, and he's like, I'm going to go and grab these other guys from different timelines. So he gets Cable and Domino and Shatterstar. And then he gets Blade, Wesley Snipes' Blade, and then he gets Chris Evans' Human Torch, and then maybe they got Ben Affleck to come back as Daredevil. And the joke is that he's grabbing all of these iconic actors from 20 years ago, and he's like, "This is my new ultimate multiverse team," and that could be the joke. You don't have to destroy the timelines that they were from, confirm all of them are dead, and then just say look, I just grabbed them just because I wanted to. And then that's it. That's the joke. That's your multiverse. And then whatever they fight, whatever big threat is in his movie. It didn't have to be so complicated. they took such a simple concept of him, and then they over convoluted it so much that trying to explain, like, we've barely like touched the beginning of the movie, and we're trying to explain how this affects anything. And I'm like, the TVA mucks this up severely, and then what we learn later about the whole, like, the stuff from the TVA and the whole the void, like, that in and of itself is a whole can of worms. And I'm like, and then in order to get the characters in there, they have to say, oh yeah, the TVA just like plucked their timeline. So if you liked the Fox X-Men, like, oh yeah, like they're all gone completely and they're all dying. Did you like Blade? His world is gone. Did you like Daredevil and Elektra? Their world is gone. Did you like Logan? Did you like Daphne Keane as X-23? Oops, her timeline is gone too, because she's in the void and they confirmed it's the same X-23. Though in this case, why is she 7 years older? Daphne Keane is older, but this takes place in 2024. And she was 12 years old in Logan in 2029. So then you're telling me she's from like 2036, and then they went, and it's like
timeline wise, she should be about 8 or 7 in Deadpool and Wolverine. So, but she's older.
Yeah,
doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, and that's the dumb thing is and I guess we can't not talk about how their whole, we're not touching Logan, guys. Everything is completely preserved. And then the first thing they do is desecrate his corpse and dig him up and use his bones to.
Look, I'm willing to look. I get that why that would upset some people, and I understand that is kind of a contradiction to the, hey, we're not going to touch Logan. We're just going to dig up his grave and violate him. But I did say this in the video that, like, I understand perfectly that Deadpool, that's something Deadpool would do. He kind of tries to help, but ends up making things worse a lot of the time. And he doesn't really have much finesse about him. So I get it. And I find it very amusing. And I like that aspect of the film. Don't get me wrong, I actually do enjoy that part. Even the dance, people like going crazy about the whole in sync bye dance parody that Deadpool does, which again I thought was done in good taste. I enjoyed it. I just think people were treating that like the Wednesday dance, so they're turning it into like this viral thing that has to be memed and replicated. And like, I guarantee you, Marvel will do something very, very similar the next time they introduce Deadpool, because once they get a whiff of something that's even the least bit profitable, or that brain deaders all over the world want to replicate and meme or whatever, they like to play into the memes. They'll do another Deadpool dance off, I guarantee you, because that's how shallow they are. But again, the whole idea of Deadpool mutilating corpses of the TVA with Logan's corpse is, I think, very funny in concept and honestly in execution too. But it contradicts the whole, hey, we're going to leave Logan completely untouched, that Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman were kind enough to assure us of in the earliest parts of Deadpool and Wolverine's marketing. And again, it's like, that's why I included that at the start of my video. It's like, you have questions. It's like, yeah, you can bet your ass on that. I got a lot of questions for why you would choose to go the multiverse route with Deadpool and the TVA and, the MCU, when you could have just done something self-contained in the Fox timeline, or just with the Deadpool characters and just had, Wolverine and Deadpool just doing their thing. Why does it have to be a multiverse thing? Why did they have to turn Deadpool and Wolverine into the Fox Avengers, X-Men, Marvel characters last hurrah? Why did they have to do that?
Yeah.
They didn't need to do any of that. Deadpool, and people are like, oh, Deadpool and Wolverine making so much money, blah, blah, blah. It was the easy, people are going to say, oh, and it's R-rated. It's like, yeah, Deadpool and Wolverine is the easiest $1 billion since The Force Awakens. Oh, yeah. Since Avengers Endgame, actually, I'll say that much. But I say The Force Awakens because Deadpool and Wolverine as a dream team up has been teased for close to a decade at this point. And The Force Awakens was like the first Star Wars. Well, Force Awakens isn't Star Wars, but The Force Awakens was the first movie with the Star Wars brand logo to come out in a decade. And it had all the original cast coming back, similar to Deadpool and Wolverine having the actors reprise their roles. And it was like everyone's fondest dream on paper, at least, come true. You damn betcha it's going to make a shitload of fucking money just for fucking existing. Never mind the writing quality. Yeah. Unless it turned out to be She-Hulk level writing. Then it probably would have tanked. But it still probably would have made like 500 million. People were like, I have to see this. I have to see it's as bad as people are saying. But they're still going to see it. They're still going to pay for a ticket. But the TVA route was really, really stupid. And I had to do a little bit of investigating myself just to fucking get it. I had to indulge Loki a little bit. I
just threw up in my mouth a little.
Just threw up in my mouth a little bit. Then look, let's get to the part where Deadpool starts multiverse hopping, and when he goes looking for all these new Logans, and look, I enjoyed some of the references, like the whole, this is the outfit you wore when you fought the Hulk, and this is James Bond Wolverine, and this is like old country western Wolverine, and the guy that like sits out on his front porch and has like a giant shotgun that blasts.
The old man Logan, which is actually what the Logan movie was based on. But that's true. That was something that was more referencing to the comics. It literally is just cage angling, and I was so annoyed because as I was watching it, I'm like, I know people are gonna cream their pants and they'll post a screenshot with a picture of a comic book panel and be like, "It's the white suit and eye patch that Logan had in this comic. It's the John Byrne outfit that he had in this comic. Oh, he posed his claws in the exact same way as that one cover." And I'm like it doesn't mean anything. It literally is.
It was actually a Screen Rant post. I forget where exactly I saw it, but it's like comic book fans are having a field day with this movie, and it shows all the long list of references and the comic panels. And I'm like, and I agree with you. It's key jangling. It doesn't mean anything. It doesn't make it a good movie. But I will, on the flip side, I will give it a little bit of credit and be like, okay, look, it's just meant to be like a satire montage that's just, referencing and making fun of Deadpool getting his ass kicked. And I can appreciate the references. I can. But, and I said it many times in my video, I loved the Cavalry reference, even though, again, it's going to age pretty poorly because people are going to be wondering why the hell Henry Cavill is in there, even though it was just a bunch of fan speculation that were
and you know what's so funny is that joke that Deadpool makes, we're gonna treat you so much better than those guys down the road. And I'm like, okay, well, first off, you found out that they had Henry Cavill smoking that cigar for hours doing take after take, and he actually got physically ill from it. So
that's true. Yeah, he did.
And then second of all, they're not going to go forward with Henry Cavill as a Wolverine. They're gonna, if they choose someone after Hugh Jackman, it's gonna be a much younger guy. Because Henry Cavill, he's in his early 40s at this point? I
think so, yeah, pretty much.
So he's not old, but if Deadpool or if the MCU wants to have a Wolverine actor that's going to be around for 10 to 15 years, they're going to want to pick someone who is much younger after they're done using Hugh Jackman. And I'm like, so then I'm like, how are they going to treat him better? They're going to do the same thing that DC did, bring him in, tease we're going to do something, and then dump him. That's exactly what they did.
yeah, they did. Now that you mention it, that's actually a very good point. It's like, we're going to treat you better, so we're going to have you in the MC for 5 seconds as like a random cameo in a movie, even though I enjoyed the cameo, and then send you on your merry way. Doesn't seem like you're getting... Again, it's having their cake and eating it too. It's not done in good taste. And even though, again, I found that to be somewhat funny and enjoyable, it's not really, they're not helping their case by being self-aware that they're doing the exact same thing.
Yeah. And it's also funny is that for all the whole bragging about how, look how accurate we are to the comics, Wolverine is finally wearing a yellow suit, and I'm like, but then they go out of their way to make fun of comic accurate Logan, who is short, because Logan is supposed to be 5'3". He is short. He's stocky and muscular, and then they get this guy, and that actor that they got, he actually is short.
You were telling me that the comic accurate Logan, who, by the way, was unlike all the miserable fucking shitty ass Wolverines, he was ready to help. He was like, who's
Right.
asking for my help? And then he was ready to, go after it. And I think he like pulled his claws out and everything. And it's like, I'm ready to help. And then, you told me like they were making fun of the one Wolverine that actually seemed the most like the comic version, even though he didn't have the suit. And honestly, I didn't know until right just then that Logan was that short, because I've seen numerous portrayals of him in, obviously the films, but also the animation, and he doesn't look that short. But
yeah, like if he actually it stands next to characters, a lot of like animated stuff and the like will still have him be shorter. It's just not as noticeable if he's not standing next to someone like Cyclops or whoever who's tall. Then like it's harder to see that sometimes. But like, yeah, he's supposed to be short. Hugh Jackman was actually a bad casting choice. He's a good actor and he's done a good job as Logan, but like in terms of accuracy, yeah, he's always been bad because he's a foot taller than what Logan should be. And
right.
and it was actually I was interested in that guy that they got to play Wolverine, comic accurate Wolverine.
Yeah.
They CGI'd his face and it looks bad. The actual guy looks the part. He's short.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he's got he's got a bit of a stocky build with like muscular arms, but and then he had the facial hair and everything, and I'm like, he could have actually played it. He's actually, funnily enough, he's a little too short. He's like what 4'11". He was really short.
Yeah.
Put him in some boots that give him a couple inches, and then he's fine. Like.
Well, like that's the but I think that's part of the joke that was done in bad taste, that like they made him, because they know Logan's short, so they made him like a midget. I mean, he's short, but he's not supposed to be a midget, right? He's not supposed to be that short,
right? But yeah, it's like, and it's like that's the thing is, oh look, we're getting the comic accurate this, the comic accurate that. Look at the reference. But then the second they had a chance to do something with a Wolverine who was like actually accurate in terms of his height, they make fun of it. And like that's the joke. Oh, look at the little Wolverine. He's so tiny. And I'm like, Wade, you're looking for someone to replace him. And this is the first one that's actually willing to listen to you. And you mock him and leave, despite the fact that you need a new anchor being to save your timeline and everyone you care about. And I'm like, and then you leave because he's not the one you want. And I'm like, it's funny, ironically, because it really shows how they do not give a crap about the comics. They just wanted Hugh Jackman. They didn't care about what the fans wanted.
Well, that was the whole. I mean, they pretended to care about what the fans wanted. That's why the whole, the whole foundation for the marketing is he's gonna do it one more time. Hugh Jackman's gonna do it one more time, and then
one last ride.
One last ride. And it even has Ryan Reynolds like, hey, I can't think of anything to write for Deadpool 3. So, he just has Hugh Jackman walking in the background of his cabin. He's like, Hugh, do you want to play Wolverine one more time? And then he's like, all right, yeah, sure, Ryan, whatever. And then that was like that's what got the hype train rolling. It's like, oh, wow, Hugh Jackman's coming back. He's finally coming back after Logan. Oh, my God, it's going to be like this awesome, like, sayonara swan song for Hugh Jackman as the character, even though we know in the hands of MCU and Feige, and the fact that Hugh Jackman and Kevin Feige are very good friends, by the way, at least from what I've seen. He's gonna come back, and he's gonna come back again, and they're gonna fucking just exploit the shit out of the fact that fans don't want Hugh Jackman. Understandably, they don't want him to retire, and they don't want him to stop being the character, even though Hugh Jackman expressed desire to move on and do other things. I wonder if the divorce like kind of played into this somehow. It's like maybe I'm just speculating here, but like was his wife like, "Hun, you're better than this. You don't have to keep doing Marvel." And he's like, "Well, I don't know. I don't know if I'm ready to say goodbye to Wolverine yet." And then like, "Oh, well, if you do Wolverine and keep doing Wolverine, I'm gonna leave you." It's like, "All right, well, I guess we're going our separate ways." Feige, give me my money. I'm sure that's not the reason why they broke up. I feel bad that Hugh Jackman got divorced. But it is kind of odd though that like now that he's divorced, he's gone full blown, Marvel yes man, and he's gonna do whatever the hell Feige tells him. Like, I don't know. I just find it strange, honestly. I don't people are gonna think I genuinely believe that that's why him and his wife broke up. I don't. I'm just saying I think the timing is a little strange.
I didn't even know he got divorced.
Yeah, no, there was actually a joke in Deadpool and Wolverine. See, there you go. It's a joke that no one's going to remember because, you know, this happened about 3-ish years ago. I'm not sure when exactly he got divorced or when they said they were going to get divorced. But yeah, when Soypool comes up to Deadpool and Wolverine and, you know, Hugh Jackman gives him some attitude, Deadpool's like, don't mind him. He's just been very emotional since the divorce. And that's what he was referring to.
Oh, see, I just thought that was a generic joke of, haha, something bad must have happened to him.
No. That's that was a meta thing. That was Hugh Jackman got divorced in real life to his longtime partner. And again, I'm not saying that joke was in bad taste, because obviously Hugh Jackman would have signed off on that. But
that requires...
it's just a nothing burger. It's a nothing burger, obscure current day reference that no one's going to remember or get later. I mean, you didn't even get it, and you're pretty, you know, in tune with what's currently going on in the current day pop culture sphere, we'll call it.
I didn't know that, so that joke went completely over my head.
Yeah,
like it's like these are the kind of bad meta jokes that that require such specific knowledge to find funny, to even know what they're referring to, and then you also have to understand the context of why they're making that joke to find it funny. And I'm like, that's not how it's annoying, because the previous Deadpool movies, whenever they made jokes about like actors and stuff, like in Deadpool 2, when there's a one point where Deadpool calls Cable Thanos. And I'm like,
that's
yeah,
right. Yeah,
that's a reference to the fact that Josh Brolin also played Thanos. It's a small reference, but if you're watching superhero movies, there's a good chance you know that. When they make a joke about James McAvoy or Patrick Stewart, like, okay, people have watched those movies, they understand that. That's more referencing general knowledge rather than this specific. Did you know that Hugh Jackman got divorced? And you're like, no. Oh, we'll laugh now, please.
Yeah, no, that's a pretty good point. A lot of the meta jokes in the previous two Deadpool films were kind of self-contained in the fact that it knows you've more than likely seen the X-Men films if you're watching Deadpool. The joke isn't too far out there for people not to get it. Most people will get that. And again, I think most people would have gotten the divorce joke, but again, in a few years, if people watch Deadpool and Wolverine with a fresh set of eyes, they're not going to know what the hell Ryan Reynolds is talking about.
Yeah. Well, and this is one of the biggest problems with referencing current events is that, like, if you ever watch stuff from like older like sitcoms, and I'm talking like from the 90s or the early 2000s, whenever they're referencing current day celebrities or stuff that's going on, and then you're sitting there, you're like, who? What? When did that happen? And then it's like someone in 1995 watching, I don't know, Seinfeld or whatever, they would have they would have understood that joke, but that's not a joke that ages well. Like that's something that like I have recognized, because I used to, like, sometimes when I would sort of come up with writing ideas, I would throw in some like topical humor like that. But then sometimes I would come back years later to look it over, and I'm like, oh, it's that little thing, that little mock-up that I wrote. And then I wrote in, and like, funnily enough, there was like a joke about like Ryan Reynolds hooking up with Scarlett Johansson. And then I'm sitting there, I'm like, that joke has aged so badly. He broke up with her and then married Blake Lively after that. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, and then that's something that you realize, I'm like, these types of jokes are only funny in the moment. Like, even a year from now, a lot of those types of jokes are going to be completely unintelligible to the average person.
Absolutely, I agree. And that's why, like, for instance, like the humor in Lord of the Rings and Star Wars, for instance, is timeless because it's all self-contained. It has to do with what's going on within the confines of the movie. And they're both otherworldly, you know, fantasy type movies that don't have any current day references. That's why you can watch them 50 years from now, still get everything, including the humor, and it will not have aged today. You know, and those are just two examples. Again, they call them classics for a reason. It's because they stand the test of time.
Yeah.
And there's plenty of, I mean, Seinfeld's kind of like that. There are a couple of things that are understandably dated in Seinfeld. Like if they reference the old World Trade Center, for instance, or if they reference cell phones and whatnot. But people understand that Seinfeld took place in the 90s. So even though it's dated, it's not dated for that time period. Hence, the humor if you're familiar with, you mean like I wasn't born in the 70s, but I understand that in the 70s they had old cars. Radio was more prominent back then. What is it? Vinyls were more prominent back then, and stuff like that. Televisions looked different. They had there was all analog technology back then. So I get it. It doesn't feel out of place for me. And neither does it feel obscure, because I understand that this is a 70s movie or a 70s television show. Same with Seinfeld. Same with, if something like, for example, I was watching, again, we were talking about this before we started doing this discussion. I'm currently watching The Rookie. That's Nathan Fillion's new show. It's not really a new show. It's an ongoing cop drama. And there was a part that really made me roll my eyes was, you haven't seen The Mandalorian? And where's my Baby Yoda toy? It made me roll my eyes, made me want to plunge headfirst out the nearest fucking window. But I'm just like, no one's going to give a shit about The Mandalorian in 5 years. People hardly remember it. And again, the reason why it was Baby Yoda is because that's the only thing people fucking remember from The Mandalorian is Baby Yoda. And it's the same shallow mentality upon which Deadpool and Wolverine was built. I'm not trashing the show. I'm just saying the reference from the show to The Mandalorian was a poor decision because, again, The Mandalorian's part of the shit. And yes, it is. And I was way ahead of the curve on that. And I knew season 3 was going to suck. And it sucked long before season 3 ever fucking came out, just for the record. But referencing The Mandalorian is, it's almost as stupid as, especially in a cop drama where it doesn't belong, and The Mandalorian isn't a classic. And that season of the show came out when The Mandalorian was still running. That season of the show came out when The Mandalorian was still running. I think it came out in 2021. I'm not sure when exactly the season was aired. But The Mandalorian was still a current topic of discussion, and now it isn't. And again, in 5 years, people are going to be like, what? People aren't going to give two shits. Other than the fact that it's loosely connected to Star Wars, or Disney's version of Star Wars. Let's move on to the Void World, and when he brings Wolverine back, and he references the fact that he has a accurate fucking suit. And
so just a second before we move on to that, there's a point I want to bring up that I don't see as many people talk about is when they first grab a Deadpool and they bring him to the TVA. The first thing they do is they give him an entirely new suit, adamantium blades, new guns, deck him out with all this weaponry, and then immediately afterwards, like after they give him that, then they tell him, we're going to destroy your world and everything you love, and we're only going to bring you over. And then I'm like, if he didn't have adamantium blades, he would have been screwed because he wouldn't have had weapons to fight against Logan with. Why?
Yeah, no, I agree with you there. I was actually going to bring that up in the video, but I was kind of like, I'll gloss over it. It's just, it doesn't really, the whole idea of the TVA being a thing is way more out there than them somehow having adamantium blades for him, which I recognize is contrived as balls and is, just so they can facilitate a fight between him, Deadpool and Wolverine. But like I said, people thought I was being too harsh on Deadpool and Wolverine. I'm telling you, I was very lenient.
You were so much nicer than I would have been if I was making the video.
Thank you.
I would not have, even the stuff that you said you like. I didn't like anything in this movie. I hated everything. Unlike you, I don't think there's a single redeeming quality in this movie. I think it's entirely soulless. So if people think you're being too harsh on this movie, haven't met me.
I know. And yeah, again, I disagree in that I agree with your general consensus on the movie being bad. I just think there are some redeeming qualities. But again, I'm a fan of Ryan Reynolds' portrayal of Deadpool. You're not. I loved Hugh Jackman in this movie doing the best he could with what he was given. I love Wesley Snipes. And if this movie did nothing else, it proved that Wesley Snipes sure as fuck still has it, even though he's a little bit rusty. And like I said, I was happy to see Wesley Snipes. I was happy to see that Marvel was willing to do business with Wesley Snipes. I'm not necessarily happy that they probably will use Blade again in a really bad way. And I don't appreciate the, once again, have your cake and eat it meta joke of, there's only one Blade and there's only going to be one Blade. And I agree with that, in that there should only be one Blade and Wesley Snipes. But we all know that they're gonna bring out the next Blade movie, and it's gonna be a train wreck. And I got nothing against the new actor. Let me make that clear. I actually think the new actor is probably the best they could have done with the casting. I'll give him top marks there. But I feel so bad for the guy. He's trying to stick it out for the movie, but they keep fucking changing their mind, and it's going through production hell. And
yeah,
if they just give it to a competent person, they keep it as divorced from the rest of the MCU as possible, and they actually try to make a good Blade movie, they can do all right with I'd be interested to see what they do with it. I'm not automatic hate everything Marvel does, understand. I just wish they would stop trying to tie everything into the MCU because they've already fucked it up. And again, I said this in the video, people saying like, why shouldn't it tie into the MCU? It makes it all better. It makes it all interconnected. A rising tide raises all ships. It's like, no, a sinking ship drags everyone down. Always. Doesn't matter how fucking high you raise the tide. If the fucking hull of the ship is Swiss cheese, then the water's going to fucking sink it.
Yeah.
Load the lifeboats and distance yourselves. Otherwise, you're going to get sucked down. Again, let's talk about how paper thin this movie's plot is.
Yeah. So like
it's got no story. I said in the video. There's no story. No story. It's about nothing.
Well, I mean, it's not really about something, but I mean,
no, it's about nothing.
Well, yeah, and like, okay, so if we take it from the top chronologically, Vanessa suddenly changes her mind and she doesn't actually care about Wade until he does something big like join the Avengers. So he tries to join the Avengers, that he gets turned down by Happy Hogan, and instead of trying to do anything else, he gives up on life. He quits being a mercenary and he becomes a used car salesman for like 6 years. And then he gets plucked out of this by the TVA, told,
your universe is dying. We you lost your anchor being, but hey, you're still welcome to join the sacred timeline.
Yeah, and then he's just like, "Yay! I finally get to matter. I finally get to be blessed by the Lord King Feige."
He gets to coat himself in Feige semen and bask in it.
This is the story that Kevin wants.
Yes,
but and so then he goes to the different like timelines. He finally grabs a Hugh Jackman because it's not Wolverine. It's a Hugh Jackman. And then they're like, no, wrong. This guy's like literally the most evil person ever of all time. And then you find out his backstory later, and he's just like he messed up and got people killed, and like that's it. You're like, okay, so he's the worst Wolverine ever. So they're sent to the Void, where they run into a bunch of cameos. They escape, then they fight a little bit, leave. And then
so much of this movie is filler in that they'll like, for example, the whole Honda Odyssey car ride where they just argue the whole way. And granted, I liked this aspect of the movie to an extent, but once it became very clear that it was just soaking up runtime, as a substitute for having a plot, it kind of lost its charm for me after a while, because once again, Deadpool and Wolverine have a giant fucking argument with each other in the car. And it breaks out into a giant blood and guts gore fest between the two of them, which was fun to watch, but it goes on for ages. And then it's just like, it's not the only time they do this. They do this when they first land in the Void, they fight, and then it's just them, walking along, arguing, sitting down at a diner, arguing. Then you get another blood and guts gore fest at the end, which again does nothing but just soak up runtime and give you a little bit of fan service. When he puts on the cowl, then they like kill 100 Deadpools, and then they get right the fuck back up, so it meant nothing. And it's like, if you cut all that stuff out, you have any idea how short this movie is? It's pretty fucking short. It's like barely 80 minutes, I think.
Yeah, there was no reason for this movie to be as long as it did. It probably could have been a 90-minute movie.
Less. No, I think less. I think it, like, again, 80 minutes, 75 minutes, like. Look, I'm not anti-fan service, understand, but when fan service is your crutch for the movie instead of a plot and a story, then I have a problem. All right, and that's exactly what this movie is. I've said it many times. It's trash wrapped in fan service and a nice little bow, so you'll accept it with open arms. That's it. But once you get the gift and you take off the wrapping and you realize it's a pile of shit, then you don't look at it the same way. It ages. It's just like, oh wow, that was disappointing. We could have done something so much different. Instead, we just have a highlight reel of fan service moments and literally nothing else. This is supposed to be a movie. And another thing I've also seen, dude, is people are like, I understand the Deadpool movie is meant to be lighthearted, but I've seen people tricked into believing the same lie about the Fast and the Furious, in that, it was always dumb shit. Just accept it for being a dumb pile of shit.
I hate that so much.
I hate that so much too. Fast and Furious was never Shakespeare. It was never Inception. It was never Heat or Die Hard or whatever. But it was still a pretty serious crime drama at the start. It was like people call it Point Break with cars, and it was. That's the truth. It always had a humorous aspect to it, but it had a niche. And it was always taken seriously. And then it turned into a giant parody of itself. And then people were tricked by Vin Diesel and the marketing and the culture surrounding the movie into thinking, it was always a parody. It was always a pile of shit. And they're spinning the same bullshit about Deadpool with Deadpool and Wolverine. It's like, Deadpool movies are always supposed to be stupid and dumb fun and blah, blah, blah. No, I mean, you don't like the first two Deadpool movies, cool man. But you can at least agree with me that they took themselves much more seriously and had a story and a through line that was trying to be sincere.
Yeah. But both of them, like in the first movie, right? It's a revenge story about him trying to go after Francis.
And it has the whole cancer aspect and the love story as well.
Right. And at the very end, when Deadpool is squaring up to fight Francis, he's not cracking jokes. He actually takes that fight seriously because this is what he's been leading to.
Yes, true. Yeah,
and then
he mostly doesn't crack jokes.
But he doesn't do as much. At least not until his brain gets messed up and he starts like hallucinating. But whatever. But like he himself is trying to take that fight seriously because he genuinely wants to kill Francis.
Right. Yes.
In a Deadpool 2, one, the death of Vanessa genuinely affects him. It's why he's suicidal. And then it's also the way he treats that kid. He's trying to help him. And
I hated that kid, just for the record. I hated that kid, but the fact that it was trying to take itself seriously is my point. Like, I'm willing to admit that.
Yeah, like the entire emotional crux at the end is that he disables his healing factor, which if he wanted to kill himself, he probably should have gotten himself one of those. But he does that, and then he takes the bullet that Cable was going to shoot to kill the kid, so that he doesn't eventually become a serial killer, and then he dies. And then, he took that seriously. And then it took Cable zipping back in time to save Wade from after he makes that sacrifice. So I'm like, they took this is what's so annoying, because you see this with a lot. It's not even just exclusively to this. I have seen plenty of series that had a really bad entry. And the series could have No More Heroes. I know you don't play the No More Heroes games, right?
I don't know.
Okay, so I won't go into details, but basically, I really like the games, the 1, 2, and then they had a spin-off that was good. And then they had the third game, and it was really bad. It was basically like, we're just making fun of everything. We're not taking anything seriously. But then the first 3 games all had serious moments. The characters had dark backstories, and the game still has a bunch of goofy, wacky, self-aware humor, but they still take the character seriously. And then when No More Heroes 3 comes in, and it's like, characters can just die. It doesn't matter. They don't actually really care. The main character's brother, who is a major supporting character of the series, he's evil, and they just kill him off for no reason. And it's like, but no one cares. It's all, they just make a joke out of it. And then people would defend that as, the series has always been dumb. There's never been anything taken seriously. And it's like, no, that's why it's frustrating. And then that's why Deadpool and Wolverine is frustrating. Yeah. Even as someone who doesn't like the Deadpool movies, the original Deadpool movies had some kind of heart to them, where they felt like they were trying to do, it felt like they had the idea of the tragic love story of him and Vanessa, and then him getting revenge in the first movie. The second movie is Deadpool trying to do something good for once. Like, now that his girlfriend is dead, he's like trying to like do something with his life to make it feel like it has meaning. And he's screwing up because he's not a good guy. So he does the wrong things for the right reasons. And ultimately he does manage to stop the kid from becoming a serial killer by saving his life. and then that saves Cable's family, which then resolves the conflicts that they had. And I'm like, yes, that is a serious. They wanted you to take that seriously, and I will insult those movies till the day I die, but I will not stand for them being slandered as just dumb nonsense. I think there's a lot of dumb nonsense in them, but if you're telling me that those movies had no emotional core and no serious character beats, you did not watch those movies.
And that's coming from someone who hates those movies. And I happen to love those movies. So there you go.
Yeah, and like considering I just watched them right before Deadpool and Wolverine.
Yeah, sorry about that, by the way. I know I put you through hell. I'm sorry about that.
But like I have it's all very fresh in my mind of like, and it was such a whiplash seeing how important Vanessa was to Wade in the first two movies, and then in the third one, she has two scenes, and he's just they're broken up, and they're just kind of standing around going, hey. Yeah, we exist. And then like even though theoretically she's important to his character, she's barely involved in the movie. The movie in which she is dead for 95% of it has more of it. She has more of it.
Yeah, that movie has more. Yeah, exactly. No, that's a good point, actually. It's true. Yeah, no, I agree with again, aside from liking the first two Deadpool movies, I absolutely agree that the whole narrative that's being pushed, that Deadpool was always supposed to be just dumb, stupid fun and nothing else. It's just a coping mechanism to justify loving the newest film, which is all that, and has none of the other things that made the first two movies, from my point of view anyway, as good as they were. Yeah, it's basically, again, it's using Deadpool and Wolverine is just there to appease the superficial and the shallow. It has very little heart. There are moments where I think it does have some heart. Like there's a nice little montage at the end of the movie that's trying to pay tribute to the old Fox movies, and it shows behind the scenes and bloopers from the old X-Men films, which again I can appreciate, but again, this movie really didn't need to be that at all. It's a Deadpool and Wolverine movie. Why does it need to be anything else? It's not marketed as being anything else.
Yeah.
But whatever. And like, there's a couple of instances where I was like, okay, I can buy into the sincerity of that moment. But again, those were few and far between. And I was like, there was one kick-ass moment where Hugh Jackman gives a really he just lays into Deadpool with a monologue that a lot of people have been praising. And I got to give that props, because I was like, damn, not only is that such a well-worded monologue and well-acted, but it's accurate as fuck to describe Deadpool, or at least, this version of Deadpool. So it worked for the moment, and then that's what makes Deadpool say, all right, that's it, fuck it. I don't care if you're meant to save my universe, be the anchor being, like, I'm going to try and fucking kill you now because I'm so fed up with your shit. And then they completely butcher each other and fuck up the Honda Odyssey, and it's hilarious. But again, that moment does bugger all for the fucking story. Yeah, like it's just in there as filler. It doesn't do anything. And again, just like the whole, I think we haven't yet talked about Johnny Storm, because they got into the, like, again, like that moment, and like the part where they first landed in the void, and then Deadpool's like, get your socks out, nerds. It's about to get good. And then they start just killing each other. And it was, granted, those were well shot and well choreographed, and I liked them a lot. Like, I understand the fan service aspect of the movie, like Deadpool Wolverine. It sells itself. You're expecting some of that fan service, and I did like the fight scenes. But then it goes to what little there is of a plot, and then it's like, okay, the bad guys are going to come and take them to Cassandra Nova, and Chris Evans shows up, and then he's Johnny Storm. Which
wait! Before that, do you like how they brought in Sabretooth and he dies like in 2 seconds, and after baiting a big battle between Wolverine and Sabretooth, Wolverine kills him immediately, and there's no fight?
Yeah, but cool, man. Don't you understand that the whole reason for why that's such a good moment is because it references the part in X-Men Origins Wolverine where Wolverine tells Sabretooth he's going to cut his goddamn head off, and then he does that in Deadpool and Wolverine. And that was a huge payoff to something that was set up like 15 years ago and was all part of Kevin Feige's master plan.
Ah, yeah.
That makes it genius.
It's a reference because that's all it ends up being.
No, but it was all part of Kevin Feige's master plan.
Yeah, because he
was there always in the shadows, formulating his master plan. He was there. He put that in there in Deadpool. He put that in there in X-Men Origins Wolverine because he knew 15 years later that he was gonna do the ultimate payoff in Deadpool and Wolverine.
He's like, I was there 15 years ago. I was like, I was the one who put that line in, and it's like, yeah, okay, Kevin.
No, it's
okay.
Well, I mean, yeah, look, but that's how Marvel simps treat that. It's like just because it's a reference doesn't make it good. Look, some references are well executed and can add something to a movie and enrich it in some way, but that wasn't one of them. And yeah, the whole Sabretooth thing, like I understand. I found it bizarre because Liev Schreiber, is that his name? The guy who played Sabretooth in X-Men Origins?
Yeah,
Liev Schreiber. He's Sabretooth. So bringing him back kind of makes more sense. They brought back the OG Sabretooth from X-Men 2000, and then Wolverine just kills him instantly. And I'm like, okay. It didn't land for me. I didn't get it. I was like,
no,
that was just bizarre. Moving on, like, can we just get on with the next part of the, that's all I was saying to myself. Like, can we get on with the next part of the movie? I had no desire to see that. I don't care that I just saw it. I have no idea what they were trying to do with that. Did not land. Let's keep going. And then obviously Chris Evans, again, I liked the way it set up and revealed Johnny Storm. And I really liked the first Fantastic Four movie from 2005. I think that movie gets far too much flack. I think the casting was excellent. I think the Fantastic Four family dynamic was excellent. I think the action sequences were great for their time. I think the humor was definitely on point. And that movie was awesome. And people treat it like, again, critics from the early 2000s and late 90s fucking sucked. And the fact that they were the ones that dragged that fucking film score down with all the reviews and, mainline criticism and whatnot, just tells me that movie was fucking gangbusters and was doing just fucking fine. Again, not without its weak aspects, but again, you look at the track record for how shit critics were back in the early 2000s, late 90s, and you'll see what I'm talking about.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, Johnny Storm in particular, dude, Chris Evans as Johnny Storm was probably the favorite out of the four of them. And then second would probably be Michael Chiklis.
Yeah.
Yeah. The second would be Michael Chiklis's The Thing. Both were great. And I liked, I can't pronounce his fucking name either. Ian Grufford, I think that's his name, as Mr. Fantastic. He was all right. And just Jessica Alba as Sue Storm was perfect. So, sorry, couldn't resist. I think they nailed the casting. And again, like I said, very lovable movie, very rewatchable movie. And that movie is going to be far less dated in the coming years than this movie is. If you, again, ignore the fact that this movie goes out of its way to kill Johnny Storm in the most fucking brutal and unceremonious way possible. The only thing that's probably more unceremonious in the way they killed Johnny Storm in this movie is Jake Skywalker's death from The Last Jedi.
Yeah.
They did it for no reason. I did appreciate the budget joke, but again, it felt very mean-spirited as opposed to the one that was made in the first Deadpool movie. They had him a point where he fucking falls down. Johnny Storm does no damage because he goes immediately up against Pyro, who just sucks his flames dry, and then he lands on his testicles, somehow doesn't die or break his pelvis, and then he gets skinned alive by Cassandra Nova, who, again, I have no idea who the fuck she is, or care who the fuck she is, or know why the fuck they chose to put her in this movie, other than meeting a fucking quota. But yeah, that happened.
Well, and then like when it comes to making the joke about like the budget, I'm like, okay, but you like Deadpool got Johnny killed for no reason, and then other characters care about Johnny, and then Deadpool's completely apathetic to it, and then other characters seem to also randomly be apathetic, like they're Deadpool too. And I'm like, okay, but I'm like, guys, he did get him killed, and the fact that he died is just chalked up to, well, I guess Chris Evans was expensive. I'm like, you know what would have genuinely been funnier is if randomly for no reason Johnny just disappears from the movie, and then they say, oh, he went off to go fight a battle, and then Deadpool turns to the camera, goes, we couldn't afford Chris Evans longer than 15 minutes.
Yeah, no, I could definitely see that being done. That would have definitely been done in better taste. But honestly, I genuinely think that Kevin Feige is just so petulant, petty, and insecure about Chris Evans being a superhero for another franchise that he just wanted to bring him back to kill him off in the, the most middle finger way possible. And, they even has Deadpool say after Chris Evans dies, after Johnny Storm dies, it's like, oh, well, that was not my favorite Chris. And it's like, really? Fucking really, Disney, Feige, Marvel Studios. Like the Avengers, I do like the Avengers films. I like all of them, the 4 that have been made. But get fucked. Like they put the Avengers on this fucking pedestal, and it's the most cringy fucking, when you understand what they're trying to do, it's the most cringy fucking thing. And it's not funny.
Yeah.
I don't find it funny. It's not. No. It's just, and the Avengers, despite their movies making money and despite them having a fan base, they've got plenty of fucking blemishes on their record for not only their movies, but their standalones as well. So get fucked, honestly. Seriously, where do you get off putting them on a pedestal as opposed to the other, Fox, X-Men, Fantastic Four?
Well, yeah, and
whatever. Maybe Fan 4 stick, but not
but they didn't bring in, say, a Michael B. Jordan and have him be the Johnny Storm that gets killed. Because
that would have been a little bit more fitting, considering people don't like that version of the Human Torch.
Yeah. Like imagine if they did the exact same joke of like Deadpool gets Black Johnny killed, and then he goes, "Oh well, we couldn't afford Michael B. Jordan," and then people would not find that joke funny because then they'd be like, "Oh, this movie is racist."
Wait, hang on. Sorry, don't you mean like we couldn't afford Chris Evans? Or
no. I'm talking if they did that joke with Michael B. Jordan.
I see. Sorry, they did the exact same joke with. Oh, I thought you meant they kill off Michael B. Jordan and then they say, "Oh, we couldn't afford Chris Evans" or something. Yeah, no, I understand. The exact same joke, they would have been met with that. People would have played the BLM card and been like, they would have got pseudo backlash from a bunch of Twitter nut jobs. But that's all they fucking care about appeasing, because they think they talk the loudest and hold the majority share of the market that they're trying to appeal to, but they don't. And people don't like Fan 4 Stick. They don't like any of them as those characters. That movie is infinitely less fun than the Chris Evans Fantastic Four movies, we'll call them, just so people know what the fuck I'm talking about. But I genuinely think it was just just sheer pettiness on Kevin Feige's behalf that Chris Evans wasn't just Captain America. I genuinely think, and given the recent track record of the MCU, it wouldn't surprise me if that was the case.
Yeah.
Where are we up to? We're getting there now. There isn't too much left to really go over because, again, this movie has such a paper-thin plot, and we've also discussed a lot of the problems. We've talked about it, and then we've jumped ahead and we've come back. We're up to the part where, what is it? Eliath comes in and kills everybody, and then again, you wouldn't know who he was if you didn't watch Loki. I thought he was Discount Galactus from the second Chris Evans Fantastic Four movie. I was like, is that Galactus? I find Fantastic Four: Rise of the Silver Surfer to be fun. I do think the writing's a train wreck, unlike the previous Fantastic Four movie. But yeah, I remember people, rightfully so, being upset that they reduced Galactus to a giant planet-eating cloud. But that's what I thought Eliath was.
Well, and like I know they're like Goliath is from the comics. I'm like, okay, but I'm not familiar with Goliath. I sure know a lot of people aren't, and they missed a joke for Deadpool to go, "It's Galactus," and then they all look at him, being like, "What?" And they could have even had a joke of Johnny going, "No, no, no, it's not Galactus. I made that same mistake." Like you could have made a joke that was relevant to the characters, but they didn't because they don't actually know how to make good jokes that are relevant to the like the meta. They just go, "Ha, we're in a movie," and then basically leave it at that.
Well, I mean, there was a couple that landed. But again, they kind of fall into the same traps. Like when Ryan Reynolds Deadpool meets Blade, Wesley Snipes Blade again. There's a joke. Where
They
like,
should have
I don't
done
like you.
so many
You
jokes.
never did. Yeah, I know, but it's like I don't like you. You never did, and that was a direct reference to a scene from Blade Trinity, which I got because I'm a huge fan of the Blade movies. But a lot of people wouldn't have got that. I mean, I do kind of give them a pass because that is kind of relevant to them in the meta. So I'll let them have that. The one that really annoyed me was when they said Deadpool. Sorry, one meta joke that really pissed me off was when they said Daredevil, meaning Affleck's Daredevil, was killed off screen, and then Deadpool was like consoling Elektra, and Elektra's like, "Nah," which is a reference to Ben Affleck's divorce from Jennifer Garner in real life, and they met on the set of the first Daredevil film. But again, like I was like, that's in very poor taste. Like I don't like.
Well, yeah, like
not only that, but they killed off the character.
Well, yeah, and it's so annoying that like that's what they reduced Daredevil to is, we killed him off, and you're like, but, and then like Jennifer Garner, Elektra is like, I don't care, even though the major thing about her was that she was in love with Matt in that movie. And then it's like, and then I'm like, okay, so why is she reacting like Deadpool would react? Like, why is she acting like, because again, like you said, like I'm presuming that this is supposed to be a joke about like the divorce, but I'm like, but Elektra doesn't know that. She doesn't have any
High Top brings that up too. He says that like all the characters kind of like Deadpool can react like that, but Jennifer Garner isn't privy to what Deadpool knows or doesn't know, so she should be upset that Daredevil is dead because those two characters were really into each other and really got along, but all of a sudden Elektra doesn't give a shit about Daredevil because Elektra is, in actuality, the writing is treating her as if she's Jennifer Garner when, you know, it doesn't work that way. It's not. The movie misses the point, and people miss the point when they buy into what the movie is selling. Like that's not really how meta humor is meant to work, and that's why the first two Deadpool movies did such a good job with the meta humor. Well, I know you disagree on that account, but you agree with me that they did a better job.
They were better than this.
Yeah, better than this. Okay. So, and before you kind of talked about this, so we'll just gloss over it. So yeah, they hike through the wasteland after they escape Goliath. They argue back and forth. They stop at a diner, which is just sitting there for some reason. Then they, you know, walk up a hill and can we please talk about the stupid Deadpool dog gag? That fucking annoyed the shit out of me. I was like, it's again appealing to the lowest common denominator of, don't you find dogs cute? Oh my God, it's a puppy. It's a puppy. Aww. And then it's like, again, it's kind of like the same shallow baby Yoda fucking mentality of, oh, isn't this cute? Isn't this adorable? I want a Deadpool dog now. And I'm just like, this isn't funny. It's overindulgent as balls, just soaks up time.
They were overindulgent from the very first scene. Like,
yeah. Well, I mean, I would have appreciated more time with Deadpool's friends than the time he spent fixated on that fucking mutt. I would have liked to hear more about what Negasonic and that were up to, and Colossus. And nope, we got to have Deadpool dog, because that's what's important. And they kept coming back to it. They kept coming back to it over and over. I was like, I thought we were done with this joke.
It was already played out in the very first scene when they had that giant slow motion scene and Deadpool's acting all excited. And I'm just like, okay, but like that was one off joke, right? It's like it's like in Thor: Love and Thunder, and you're like the goats. And you're like, okay, well, we're done with the goats, right? And then they come back. You're like, okay, but we're done.
Oh
with
my god, no, don't! I'm getting some PTSD.
So I'm sorry for triggering your PTSD.
That fucking movie and those fucking goats. I would have again. I kind of regret not. I know I quit the MCU, and one of the reasons I quit the MCU is because I couldn't imagine myself making a video about that fucking Phase 4 schlock. I had no interest in making a video of Multiverse of Madness. She-Hulk, I only made a video about Daredevil's involvement because he was fucking ruined, as I said he would be ruined. And then there was a whole bunch of other, Black Panther, World of Wakanda. No, not World of Wakanda. Wakanda Forever. Who gives a shit about that outside of fucking Chadwick Boseman's memorial? Rest in peace. But Thor: Love and Thunder, I was actually dragged to, even though I insisted to my workmates who insisted we go see it. I was like, guys, Top Gun Maverick is right there. I've seen it twice. I'll see it a third time if it means you guys can go see it and enjoy it. And we you can go see Thor: Love and Thunder when I'm not here. Godspeed. But can we please go see Top Gun Maverick? It's like, no, come on, NOMZ. We gotta go see Thor: Love and Thunder. It's the latest Marvel movie. And I was like, all right. And then we went to Thor: Love and Thunder, and I kept my mouth shut because I didn't want to ruin their watch through. But I was just internally, I was writhing in agony. But I could also tell, so were they. And and that's what kind of gave me a little bit of amusement through the movie. Because I was like, they're I'm keeping this tangent in the review, by the way, because I have to tell this story. And it is still about Marvel, all right? So sue me. But anyway, I could tell they were struggling with the movie too. And I had a little bit of a smirk on my face. And I looked over at the row we were sitting in. And I was like, okay. And then the movie finally ends after all that fucking goat howling. Fuck Taika Waititi. Just fuck him. Like TJ Miller, how the fuck does that motherfucker get work? I will never know. Mm-hmm. But anyway, we leave the theater of Thor: Love and Thunder. And I asked my friends, so what did everybody think? And they're like, it wasn't as good as I thought it would be. No, it wasn't that good. It was kind of bad. And I was like, well, I liked it. I was just like, well, I liked it. I was trying to play the optimistic one. But yeah, it was just funny seeing how excited they were to go see Love and Thunder and then their reactions afterwards. I was like, could have gone and see Top Gun Maverick. Could have gone to see it. Anyway, so yeah, but like the goat gag from Love and Thunder, it's just the dog gag from Deadpool and Wolverine. Granted, it was less insufferable than the fucking goat gag from Love and Thunder, but it was just a big fat nothing burger. It didn't land, and it just completely outstayed its fucking welcome. But that was what they used instead of a plot and a story to pad out the runtime. And then, we had the Honda Odyssey thing, which we've discussed. And then they get dragged to the, washed up Fox superheroes hideouts and we get the cameos. And then, what really annoyed me, and I was like, okay, I know this movie isn't being as woke as some of Marvel's other productions. And it's getting praise solely on that from a lot of people. The fact that it didn't take the PC route. But they have Elektra immediately overpower Daredevil. You catch that?
You mean Deadpool?
Sorry, I keep getting them mixed up. I'm sorry. Yeah, they have Elektra completely overpower Deadpool. And I'm like, that's a bunch of bullshit. And they have Elektra, who's just this rich girl playing with fucking pitchforks in the old Daredevil and Elektra movies. She's fighting alongside Blade and Gambit and Wolverine and Deadpool and X-23. And she's holding her own like she fucking belongs there. I'm like, get fucked. There's no way. She'd be fucking dead in 5 seconds. She's a competent fighter and a vigilante. She'd get killed in 5 seconds against those guys. And against the dozens of armed gunmen they're up against. And mutants. They're up against mutants too, remember, not just gunmen. And yeah, they have that whole, team up thing where the Fox X-Men and Elektra and Blade and Gambit and whatever, just they go to war with Cassandra Nova. And do you want to talk about that X-23 Logan reunion real quick?
Oh my gosh, it's so
because you hated that. I kind of enjoyed it. I thought it was okay for what it was. You hated it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So God bless Daphne Keane for trying, because the script gives her nothing to work with. You can tell when they're walking, when all the other movie characters are walking in, and there's this very obvious like audience clap bait scene where they walk in and they pose and they look at the camera, and it's just like in No Way Home where there's a pause so that you can go, oh my gosh, I'm creepy with hands. But like when Daphne Keane walks in, you can tell she's looking at Logan and she's like looking him up and she's like, what? Huh? And like I doubt that was in the script. But then like whenever they have exactly one scene together where they're talking, and it amounts to her going, yeah, I knew another Logan. You should like be better, bro. And then he's like, actually, let me tell you my backstory. I drank one time and got drunk and missed a mission, and then everyone died, and then I killed people. And it's like, okay. And then she goes, you need to be better, Senator. I mean, you should be like my Logan, who was bad, but then he was good. And it's like, and then that's it. That's their entire scene. I'm like, I'm sorry. Like, yes, this is not the Logan from Logan, but like X-23, especially if this is one who has spent years older, like she should be far more emotional at seeing a Logan, even if it's not her Logan. Like, and especially because he is in a dark spot where he's miserable, and like she should be trying to like reach him more, like to get through to him, because the Logan she saw died sacrificing himself for her, and like she should be like oh, she should be delighted, like Logan, like even if you're not Logan, it is a Logan. She can like that chance that she missed at the ending of Logan where hers died. Like she maybe has a chance to like build up that father-daughter relationship with another one, and you could actually have it where he's resistant to it because he has no context for who the hell she is.
Yeah,
he doesn't know that she's a female clone of another version of him from another timeline. You could really play with the multiverse angle in that regard, where he's just like, hey, back away from me, kid. I have no idea who you are. And she like pop out her like blades and being like, look, I'm like you. Like I knew a Logan. And that honestly, you could have had an entire movie about X-23 meeting and bonding with an alternate universe Logan. Like, and then they just give it one scene, and it's really just a thinly veiled excuse for him to give his backstory, because he's been cagey the entire movie about what his horrible backstory that makes him the worst Wolverine in the multiverse. But yeah, it's like you could do so much more with that concept, and they don't do anything with it. The one scene they have is literally just it's just an excuse to finally give Logan's backstory. And I'm like, and
but they sorry to cut you off. Morning point that they already gave his backstory a couple of times, actually, I think, throughout the runtime. And like I think I even said this in my video, the way that even though I liked the scene, the way that X-23 describes the Logan she knew isn't all that different when you really take a step back and compare the two, from how he was in Logan to the way he's portrayed in Deadpool and Wolverine. It's just like they're both grumpy as fuck about what happened in their past and not being there to help their friends or whatever, and feeling like failures and being depressed. And they go through a very similar arc as one another. It's just that Logan had actual nuance, while Deadpool and Wolverine's version of Logan doesn't, not really. And again, to quote High Top, it's the Cliff Notes version. And I said in my video, it's like Logan was a depressed, grumpy shitfuck in his movie until like the final 15-20 minutes. It's not all that different from the Logan in Deadpool and Wolverine, who's also grumpy as fuck and doesn't want to help and doesn't want to do anything until, again, the final 20 minutes of the movie, when he comes to his senses. It's just, again, it's just a shallow retelling. Yeah. And it's in there just, again, mainly for fan service. I appreciated some of it within the confines of Deadpool and Wolverine, the fact that Daphne Keene's X-23 knows that this isn't her Wolverine, and the scene was written to accommodate that. But again, it doesn't really add that much more to your point. It's just like I said, a shallow retelling. And all it does is, again, just we got to hear Wolverine's backstory again. Even though I'm pretty sure, didn't he tell Ryan? I say Ryan Reynolds. Didn't he tell Deadpool at the diner?
Well, no. he spends most of the movie giving sort of vague references to failing and whatever.
Right.
But the scene with X-23 is the first time he actually gives the details of what happened.
Right. So, I see. Okay.
Right, because he was cagey about all the details, and then the details were he got drunk, missed a mission, and then all the other X-Men died, and then like that's why he's wearing the suit that they gave him, and I'm like, which could have been really poignant if they actually did anything with it. Like if we got like flashbacks to him and his Cyclops, his Professor X, his Jean Grey, his Storm, and we got to see a little bit more of that, then yeah, I might have been a little bit more interested in seeing this version, but they didn't. They weren't interested in actually telling the story. They were just interested in finding a way to get Hugh Jackman in and make him act vaguely like he did in Logan.
Yeah. No, I agree with you there. And by the way, just a quick question. From what you know about Deadpool in the comics, and I've read a couple of Deadpool comics, but does he ever have like 2 gold pistols at one point? Because they make a point in Deadpool and Wolverine that he gets 2 gold pistols from Soypool, and Hugh Jackman gets his Wolverine cowl. It was going full batshit fucking balls out fan service mode.
I am not familiar with any particulars. There may be some time in the comics where he did it. The collections that I've had that I got years ago that I read that really made me a fan of Deadpool, I don't remember that being a thing. But like, even if it was, that would literally just be like
more key jangling.
Yeah. And what's really frustrating is that there are things in the comics that are really interesting. Not everything is good in the comics, so not everything needs to be adapted. But there's a lot of stuff from the comics that doesn't ever get adapted, usually because it's too goofy. Like Thanos' motivation in the comics during the Infinity Gauntlet storyline was to impress Lady Death. He's crazy. He thinks that if he kills half of all living things, she'll like him more. And then that's the whole thing. That's why he's the Mad Titan. But then in the MCU, they were like, no, that's a stupid motivation. We're going to make him like super philosophical. And he's going to be like, I care about people, which is why I will murder half of people. And they're like, okay, but he makes an illogical decision based on a supposedly logical motivation. And then you go, but he's crazy. And I'm like, no, but he's clearly not. You want him to be seen as tough. And then it's frustrating when these goofier aspects are completely left out and they try to take themselves more seriously. And going back to Lady Death, and I know I've mentioned this to you before.
You have,
but she is basically Deadpool's main love interest. And it is so funny because she is literally the embodiment of death in the Marvel universe. And she has the exact same kind of juvenile, stupid humor that Deadpool has.
Right.
And the Deadpool video game does a perfect job in capturing her. And it's really frustrating to me that like they kind of took aspects of death and they gave it to Vanessa. And do you remember in Deadpool 2, whenever Wade like dies before he regenerates, he sees Vanessa in the afterlife? That was something they straight up took from him in Death. Because that's how he and Death first met. When he died. Yeah, because in the first movie, more or less, like it kind of captures his backstory where like he's experimented on. He gets Wolverine's healing factor, though they didn't incorporate that, and he dies and comes back and dies and comes back, and like he meets Death because he dies and then comes back.
I see. Okay,
it's one of those things. It's their love story is they meet whenever he actually dies, and then they can hang out for a bit before he regenerates. It's the one thing that they want to be together, but they can't because she's so enamored with him because he's really good at killing, and he's the one person whose soul she could never have.
Right, I gotcha. That's pretty cool. Like character dynamic there. I'm not gonna...
Yeah, and it's really funny because she makes stupid yo mama jokes. She does a stupid thing, and she definitely matches his freak. And I've told you this before. It's one of the funniest like comics like panels of ever where Deadpool's
send me the comic panel or the comic issue. Actually, I want to read it now. But in the MCU, look, and I'll bat for the MCU here and say, look, I imagine they couldn't have adapted all of that. Well, I mean, look, it's a fact. They couldn't have adapted all of that for Thanos' story because of licensing issues. So I get it. They had to come up with a slightly new story for Thanos. So even though it wasn't completely comic accurate,
well, no, they should own Lady Death. Lady Death isn't a Deadpool character; she's an overall Marvel character,
right? But didn't you tell me at one point that like Lady Death, like Thanos was jealous of Deadpool, which is why he went on his like.
Well, that's part of it, right? He does want to impress her, but that's just sort of a running joke. Is that Thanos is in the losing member of a love triangle between Deadpool and Lady Death, like that's a running joke. You can still adapt Death without including Deadpool, which is which loses some of the funniest parts of her character, but like it at least incorporates the whole thing of Thanos, which is why at the end of Avengers they put in the line, to fight them would be to court death, because his motivation was literally to court death.
And so, well, I mean, I still like what they ended up doing with Thanos in Infinity War and some of Endgame, but but I can understand them being in a somewhat awkward position with that.
I before I went on a tangent, I actually did mean to bring this all back to the point of what Deadpool and Wolverine is doing. Back to on topic, because whenever they do the suit, look the comic, look that one outfit, look this one design, look that one character, it's like it's not adapting stuff. Like for example, like we talked about earlier with comic accurate Wolverine, they make fun of him because he's not Hugh Jackman and he's not tall, and I'm like, okay, because clearly they don't actually care about the comics, they just care about like the sort of the little things that they could tickle the balls of the nerds to be like, without putting any actual effort. All they need to do is look up, like they could go into Google and search Wolverine outfits, and then they say, all right, there's this outfit, it's the John Byrne outfit, so put him in that in one scene. Okay, dude, we're done. And it's like, that's everything is all the fan service and stuff is superficial. The fan service in and of itself is fine, but like when that's the only thing you really have going for the movie, then no, the fan service is pointless. If, for example, they brought in a John Byrne Wolverine and he had that suit the entire time and he was a different Logan that they worked with, then that would at the very least give some relevance to that outfit. If they had James Bond eye patch Logan and he did something in the movie, it would make that reference a little bit more relevant than a single scene cameo. Yeah. If they brought in Henry Cavill and they bait and switch Hugh Jackman, that he disappears after the first bit and then he goes and he gets Henry Cavill, and that's the Wolverine in the movie, and that's like the joke is we baited you with Hugh Jackman and brought someone else in, like that would at the very least be a funny little thing, and it would make use of Henry Cavill. But all these references are just window dressing. The actual core of the movie is, as we talked about, is so shallow and empty that it has to constantly fill it with dirty jokes, violence, and pointless
dog
cameos.
Jokes.
And lots of dog jokes. Yeah, just to distract you from the fact that they don't have a story. There's no story.
It's about nothing.
About nothing.
No, nothing happens. I just, when I was writing that video, I was like, oh, that Seinfeld episode would be pitch perfect to summarize Deadpool and Wolverine's story and plot. But and I agree with you. Yeah, it's all key jangling. It's surface level. It's a smoke screen of nerd loin milking and nothing else really. Whereas Deadpool 1 and 2 had a bit of that, but it was never it's never what they leaned on to make the movies work or to make the movies entertaining. That was half the fun. The other half of the fun was the story and Yeah.
Well, and like there is a funny joke in Deadpool 2 when they're at the X Mansion, and like obviously he makes the complaint about how there's only ever a couple of them there, and then he walks by a room where you see James McAvoy, you have a Storm, you've got Cyclops, you got Nightcrawler, and then Beast walks up and quickly closes the door because it's all the cast from like First Class and Apocalypse and stuff, and they're like closing the door because they don't want to deal with Deadpool. Which that is a funny joke because it's acknowledging, okay, yes, these are the versions of the characters in this timeline, but also they don't want anything to do with
Deadpool. They're trying to avoid Deadpool. And Deadpool is kind of like the outcast X-Men because he's so bizarre and beats to his own drum and uncontrollable and just borderline nuts. I mean, hell, if Deadpool ever turned evil, like they wouldn't know what to do. I imagine they could beat him, but they'd have their hands full, certainly.
But whenever it comes to like how they're treating the characters, it's just like it's so painfully obvious that none of the writers really care. Right. And the fact that the movie is so, and like the fact is, I know we haven't really talked too much about Cassandra Nova, despite the fact that she's ultimately the main villain. Because I don't really
want to talk about it, to be honest.
And we're sure as hell not talking about the man in the suit. Oh wow, the most dangerous.
Dun, dun, dun. Yeah, no, it's like I'm really meant to be. Yeah, he was the villain. People say Cassandra was the villain. No. They swapped to Cassandra at the last moment. And they did a piss poor job of building her up. And she's formidable, and she's a hard villain to kill, even though they killed her pretty damn easily because of her sheer incompetence and because they messed up a machine that obliterated her. And the only thing that kept Deadpool and Wolverine alive was the fact that they were listening to Madonna. Apparently, that's actually what Deadpool says to justify the fact that Feige didn't want to kill off his 2 golden tickets. He's like, you said you said one of us was going to die. But you didn't say
2 of us.
That 2 of us was going to die while we were listening to Madonna, motherfucker. And then I'm just like, really? Now it's a complete joke. Now it's why the fuck am I watching this?
Honestly, I would have given them a little bit of credit if they actually followed through with Logan sacrificing himself to save everyone. Because I'm like, it would have actually but it honestly felt exactly like Finn in The Last Jedi when he's going to sacrifice himself to save everyone, and then freaking Rose comes out of nowhere, T-bones his ship, and goes, "We're not gonna fight what we hate. We're gonna save what we love," as everyone's dying behind them. And it's
also just physically impossible that she would be able to do that, catch up to him after she turned back and then she turned around to get him and somehow beat him to the target. And it's like the only reason anyone bought into that he's really going to die crap is because the movie makes it very clear that, there's no way out of this. They do this, they're going to die for sure. And they've cut off all of the potential Ex Machina saves that could possibly get the character out of this mess. And then they go, psych, and then they do it anyway. And it's like, oh, wow, there was absolutely no stakes. And you guys don't give a single solitary shit about continuity in your own movie. So why the fuck should I care? Why am I watching this? If you have a wide shot that shows the character is alone and about to get shot, and then you do a close-up, and then all of a sudden the character has the next zoom out, the character has someone there to save them. It's like the cheapest fucking maneuver there ever is. And I know that's not exactly what they did with Deadpool and Wolverine, but it's the same in concept that they outlined, they're going to die if they try this. And somehow that kills Cassandra Nova. I have no idea how that should kill her. All they did was sabotage the machine, really. But they said, no, Deadpool and Wolverine are going to actually die. And I didn't believe for a second that they were going to die. I was like,
oh, no.
How the fuck are they going to justify getting them out of this horse shit? This fucking bait and switch bullshit. How are they going to yank him back and say, no, everything's perfectly fine? And they did that, and they just didn't give a single solitary shit. They're like, we're okay because we're awesome. We got big dicks. We're indestructible, and we're listening to Madonna. That's why we're alive. Through sheer meta bullshit, we survived that. And I'm like, okay, that was never a thing in the previous Deadpool movies. I will say that whole death scene, how much did they milk that scene with Deadpool and Wolverine and their supposed death? How hard did they milk it? We knew that they weren't going to die, and they just dragged it out.
Well, yeah, they dragged it out more than Deadpool's death scene in Deadpool 2, which was already frustrating enough.
But, that was dragged out. I hated that.
But in this case, it's like we know, like the second that Deadpool pulls the very predictable, I'm actually going to sacrifice myself, I'm like, oh, okay, so he's definitely not going to die because they're not going to kill Deadpool. And then when Wolverine comes in, and then I'm like, okay, of course they're not going to die. Like, both of them are here. They're not going to kill off both of them. Like, they are not going to try to be all bold because that wouldn't appease general audiences. They would be very upset if it ended with them both dying.
Not to mention, it would have been a very anticlimactic way for them to go. And it's kind of like you got the same vibes at the end of Infinity War, where once they started evaporating Black Panther and the Guardians of the Galaxy into dust, you're like, okay, we know that this isn't final, and they're going to pull some Houdini shit in the next movie to bring them all back. Granted, it was shocking for the moment. It was well executed. It was well shot, well executed. I bought it for a moment, and I was pretty sad at the end of Infinity War. But I mean, I knew there's no way they're going to stay dead. And that's sad because when that happens, you should buy it. There shouldn't be this voice in your head telling you, be realistic, NOMZ. There is still money to be made, and they're not going to stick to an artistic choice because they still have to make their money. So don't take any character deaths in this movie seriously, because you know what Marvel is and why they do what they do. Unfortunately, it makes it really hard to enjoy any Marvel movie because you have that voice in your head constantly because of their track record.
And then to add on to the frustration, the fact that they're blasting Madonna and then of course they have Wolverine's shirt rip off, but not his mask. And then they basically focus on, wow, look how sexy Hugh Jackman is. And I'm like, okay, it's like you had even a slightest bit of emotions in that scene of them teaming up together to save the multiverse. And then you ruin it because you can't help but be like, wow, we're going to be really sexual about this for no reason. And we're going to completely deflate any of the tension that was in this scene. Because the scene of them like grabbing hands, and then he sticks the blades into the other antimatter thingy. And I'm like, look, I knew exactly what was going to happen, but at least they could still like retain the like, oh, look how awesome we are. Except then they had to ruin it, and like they're making jokes about it. I'm like, did you think like this was going to make us think you were going to kill them? Like, I'm not shocked or surprised when they walk out like in slow motion afterwards. I'm like, it's like if they had and the fact that they couldn't be genuine, and that's one of the biggest problems with this movie, especially compared to the first two Deadpool movies, is that it can't be genuine. When people die horrible deaths, Deadpool can only crack jokes. He doesn't actually care about anyone, not like he did in the previous movies, despite the fact that theoretically his whole journey here was sparked by the thought that all the people that he cares about were going to die. He doesn't actually care about anyone in Deadpool and Wolverine. And the movie itself doesn't really care. Right? It doesn't care who it kills off. It doesn't care what the stakes are. It doesn't care about the logic or anything. It just feels like it wants to make jokes about everything. So even when they have a moment to do something sincere, even if it's just being, wow, look how awesome we are, when they're like teaming up while Madonna plays, they can't help but crack jokes about it, thus lessening even the slight bit of the tone they were going for of the F yeah, Deadpool and Wolverine are like indestructible, bro. And it's like, yeah, then it's like but it's like, and it's frustrating because this is throughout the entire movie. So
well, and to be fair, like that, I think that's the biggest difference between the old Deadpool films and the MCU-ified Deadpool, because that's actually quite textbook for the MCU to just not overindulge sincerity, or hell, hardly indulge sincerity at all, and just crack jokes like every 5 seconds, even when it should be a pretty sincere moment for the character. And they'll do something to undermine it, and then they'll just kill the character and then just bait and switch and just bring him back, or say, oh no, he didn't really get hit by a bullet or whatever. I don't know. It's hard coming up with off the cuff examples, but yeah, no, I hear what you're saying, and I agree with you wholeheartedly. Yeah, no, that whole ending death scene was overindulged and shallow as fuck. And by the way, like, I'm pretty sure that wasn't even Hugh Jackman, like, fully anyway. Once the shirt came off, I'm pretty sure that was like special effects that, you know.
I mean,
cut off.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Have you seen Hugh Jackman recently, like working out in the gym and stuff? He's old, and he's, well, not old, but he's like, you know, he's in his 50s. He's you know, pale as fuck, because he probably doesn't get as much sunlight or whatever. And he's fit for his age, but he's nowhere near like supermodel cut anymore. And yeah, he's got a physique on him, but he's
not the same guy he was at 35, basically.
Yeah, people thought he looked jacked as fuck in Days of Future Past and the Wolverine, and he was. But I'm just saying, he's not, you know, they're still trying to play to that, like, whoa, look at him, he's shredded. But that's not all Hugh Jackman anymore. I can promise you that.
Well, yeah, and it's like, it's so annoying because it's like, it's so superficial. I mean, like, Hugh Jackman, like any actor can work out, take steroids and get jacked. I'm like, but Hugh Jackman is actually a really good actor. I'm like, focus on that. Like, sorry,
it's just every time someone says Hugh Jackman is jacked, I put a
smile on my face.
The jacked man, yeah. I love him. I love the guy. Hugh Jackman is amazing. One of the best actors, and he's probably got one of the best film resumes out there. Just the record, the amount of like excellent movies he's been in, and what he's lent to those movies. So I give him nothing but props for everything he did in this movie. But yeah, like, it's just, he was given shit to work with. He turned chicken shit into chicken salad, like he always does, for his character at least.
Yeah, he was trying. It's just that he didn't have really anything to work with.
Well, I mean, like, he had that monologue when they finally gave him something to work with, you know, that monologue where he just tears into Deadpool. He fucking knocked it out of the park with that. You know, I don't think anyone can say that he didn't. And I can totally buy that Deadpool would get under Wolverine's skin that much that he would just rant about what a little shit he is. So I give it props, but plot-wise, what did that have to do with anything? Nothing, really. And like I said in my video, the dynamic between Deadpool and Wolverine is buyable, is funny, is likable. The movie was designed to be liked, even if it was just at a very superficial level. That's the way it wants you to feel while watching it. And I don't fault anyone for liking this movie in the moment, but once the moment has passed and it sticks with you for more than 2 seconds, you realize that there's nothing there. There's nothing there beyond, again, a moment for the highlight reel. That's it.
And just real quick, because I don't want to spend too much time on Cassandra, because she's also a nothing burger of a character. And she's just a ridiculously OP. But like, the fact that she is Professor X's sister, and the fact that they don't include Professor X in this at all, I'm like, why would you even bring her in and not bring in the one character she actually has? I'm like, look, as stupid as it would be if they brought in an alternate James McAvoy Professor X and had him like fight like Cassandra or whatever, or help them fight Cassandra or something, to give like some kind of like connective tissue for her character to what's going on. And I'm like, and I'm not as familiar with her character in the comics. I admit I don't know as much about her, but like, if you're going to bring in a character, then like, why not bring it? It's actually a similar problem I had with Deadpool 2, where they straight up like acknowledge that Juggernaut is Charles's brother, and they don't have Professor X come in to help, despite the fact that he would always come in to stop Juggernaut. It's just like, no, it's just the ones that we brought in. Like, it's just like, no. If you're going to bring Cassandra in, then you're going to have to bring in the one guy who she actually has a real reason to have a conflict with, and not just use her as a cheap, we need an OP villain just to be OP.
Yeah, no, I agree with that.
Yeah, and that's really all that needs to be said about her character without diving into the nitty gritty of all the little decisions that were made.
And yeah, the Deadpool and Wolverine, the ending is just what the guy in the suits, the main villain, gets taken into custody by the TVA, and then Deadpool and Wolverine ask TVA, "Hey, can you bring back some of those cameos, the ones that Feige wants to use for later shitty ass MCU productions? Can you bring some of those guys back?" And then she's like, "Yeah, sure, I'll give it a shot." And then the only one we see at the end is X-23, of course. And then they have a really kind of okay shawarma joke, which is a reference to the first Avengers movie, which, I mean, fine. I'll take it, whatever. They have the Deadpool dog come back again. Then Deadpool and Wolverine become bros and they celebrate the holidays together, and that's the end of it. And then Wolverine's like, "Yo, talk to the girl," meaning Vanessa, "and fix your shit," which never should have needed to be fixed in the first place. And that's the end of the movie. And then it ends with a shot of both of their masks, and it's like, "You fan service, bro," and that's it.
Yeah,
and that's the fucking movie. That right there is the movie. And then they get the Fox X-Men retro montage, paying quote unquote tribute, as some people like to put it, to the older Fox movies, despite the fact that they basically just fucking buried them. Aside from the parts that they wanted to keep for themselves and keep the MCU afloat. And then there was like this weird post-credit scene where the Deadpool's like, "I did not get Johnny killed. He got himself killed." And yeah, I don't know, man. That was Deadpool and Wolverine. You got anything more to add, or?
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, I guess just a little point to add on to all the things they did to completely give a middle finger to Logan is, the anchor being means that his decision to sacrifice himself was actually the worst possible thing he could have done, and he should have
got his own universe killed.
Yeah, he should have just let all the kids die. It's for the greater good.
The universe would have been otherwise the canon event would have been disrupted.
Yeah. He's
like across the Spider-Verse. It's like, no, Logan surviving is part of the canon. You can't disrupt the canon.
Yeah, but Miguel O'Hara comes in. They just bring in Oscar Isaacs to come in. He's like, "No, this is a canon event."
Yeah.
Like,
oh god.
And
my god.
But yeah, like, that's just another reason. And also the fact that inevitably their world was destroyed anyway, because X-23 is there in the void. So again, it was all pointless anyway.
Yeah.
So that was great. Yeah, I mean, it's funny because there are like 10,000 ways they completely screw up Logan, despite the fact that was the one thing they were like, "We're not messing with Logan." And then that was a lie.
Well, I mean, they technically kept their word. They just did, like I said at the beginning of my videos, like they just did something much, much worse. Look, I mean, like I said, I still enjoy parts of this movie. I'll probably go back and rewatch some clips from time to time, just for, shits and giggles. But the movie itself is a train wreck. Nothing worth watching that's beyond the superficial, meant for the shallow and the lowest common denominator of human intelligence, which basically makes up the MCU's current hardcore fan base. Sue me, eat me, whatever. But that's at this point, what else is it? What else can we call this cavalcade of dumb fucks? Honestly, that rewatch a shallow as fuck fan service orgy fest, which is all this movie is. It's a fan service orgy fest that's taking place in a giant dumpster, and they're going to pour money into it and see it 7, 8, 9 fucking times just to keep the numbers up for Feige, their overlord. Like, what else can you call these fucks at this point?
Well, and
beyond
really,
saving.
Yeah, well, and ultimately, despite the fact that they make that Deadpool goes, "Wow, multiverse stuff, can we just pump the brakes on it?" You know that because of the success of this movie, they're going to be like, multiverse stuff does work. We're going to do even more stuff, and we're going to end up with more multiverse of madnesses.
Yeah, and well, like I said, it started with No Way Home. No Way Home set the precedent. It was the trendsetter for this new business model of Marvel. And then Marvel, with their own way of doing things, unlike Sony, went ahead and did Multiverse of Madness, failed miserably at making, at replicating the success of No Way Home. They still made money, but not nearly as much. And then they tried a few more ways of doing it, which all sucked. And then the only multiverse story that actually fucking lands and resonates with people is led by two characters and actors that have absolutely nothing to do with the MCU, but are obviously now connected to the MCU through this bullshit fucking TVA crap that is designed to just, buy other franchises, take their assets and their actors and their characters that they've established and then chuck them into Feige's mess and, call that making art or making movies that isn't shallow, useless crap. But again, the Marvel faithful will eat it up and insist that it's all part of the plan because that's how fucking far off the fucking spectrum they are. Like,
and this movie is not going to age well. I mean, not even just from the humor, but it's going to be like with No Way Home, where the second people actually get over the hype of seeing those actors, they're gonna look at this and they're gonna be like, this is actually not that good. But I'm like, but it's hype in the moment, and that's all Marvel cares about because they got their money.
And it's gonna look. I don't know how many times we're gonna have to go through this same tired fucking cycle, but it's not gonna be. There's no longevity to it. They'll probably make money a few more times. I have no doubt the Avengers movies will make money solely on the fact that they're Avengers movies that are designed to be an ensemble fan service fest of actors and star power and whatever. But like this new business model it's not going to last. People are going to be tired of being baited in to see if you can. It's like, oh, no worries, I can stay home. We know the movie is just going to be, a few cameos are going to be baited in there, and it's nothing I can't watch online because bottom line, I go to the movies for a good experience and a fulfilling experience, and I'm not going to get that with these new movies. And every time they've come out with that, it's been the same tired fucking trend. It's going to take a while to die off, but there's already been a few really shitty fucking examples that have not been nearly as lucrative as Marvel has wanted them to be. Multiverse of Madness being one of them. Probably the best example, actually. And Deadpool and Wolverine, again, was designed to be liked. It hit all of the superficial beats that fans wanted to see from this movie, which is why it's doing so well at the box office. And not only that, but again, Deadpool and Wolverine has been teased at for nearly a decade and had a lot of just automatic hype to go along with it. That was always going to make sure it did well at the box office. Like I said, it's the easiest $1 billion Marvel's ever made outside of Endgame and Infinity War. Which, to be fair, look, after Infinity War, we all know that Endgame was a sure thing to...
Oh, yeah.
Even though it took like a decade to build up Infinity War and Endgame, after Infinity War landed, we all knew that Endgame was going to do easily $1 billion, maybe $2 billion, but obviously it did way better than that. Kudos to Marvel, whatever. But again, Deadpool and Wolverine, easiest $1 billion. Same with Endgame. And yeah, it's R-rated, but I mean, I've heard people say that the Marvel faithful and their fucking parents would take them along to see Deadpool and Wolverine, despite it not being nearly age appropriate for them. So, I don't think the R rating is keeping stupid parents from bringing their children along. And there's a lot of stupid parents out there. Yeah. So there's that. And obviously there's post-COVID inflation and a whole bunch of other factors. But the reason why I like to bring up Joker and compare the box office numbers is because, Deadpool and Wolverine's made more money than Joker. Joker made more money with less going for it because it was a good movie. And that's the whole point of why good movies make money for longer. Top Gun Maverick and, again, Avatar: The Way of Water are another good examples because...
Also that point with Joker is that it also had a fraction of the budget of Deadpool and Wolverine, a fraction of the marketing, and a fraction of any of the CGI budget. So, even if Deadpool and Wolverine is technically making more money, I'm going to wager that even by the end of its run, the Joker is going to have been a more profitable movie.
Agreed. And another reason why Joker made so much more money worldwide than it did domestically is, well, there was the media factor that was trying to run Joker into the ground with the narrative of it's going to incite violence.
Oh my gosh!
That pissed me off.
And all they did was point to the Aurora shooting at the Dark Knight, and I'm just like, That was one thing. That movie was airing all over the world. You have one time when some crazy loon shot up a theater, and now they're like, but it's like Batman stuff will make people. I'm like, shut up. I don't even like Joker. I hate Joker. It's not going to turn people into shooters. You idiots. You nincompoops.
Yeah.
It frustrates me so much.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But that's why it suffered at the domestic box office. When if you look at the Marvel films, the mainstream media does nothing but suck Marvel's dick, and that's also what lends to the hype machine. Joker had all that working against it, and it still did pretty damn good at the domestic box office, but worldwide, none of that was affecting the box office numbers. And you just see how much it resonated worldwide. Like, the one record that Deadpool and Wolverine has not claimed and will not claim is the worldwide box office that Joker made. Yes, Deadpool and Wolverine made more money in total internationally, but strictly from the worldwide box office, Joker made more money long term.
Yeah.
Simple as that. And that's because it was a better film and actually had something going for it beyond the superficial.
Well, and like for a movie that just kind of vaguely slaps in Batman stuff, like it's not a Batman movie. It's not even really a Joker movie because Joker isn't like Joker. So like it people went and saw it for the movie rather than just like, because like people weren't going to go in and going, oh my gosh, look at this outfit. This is the iconic outfit from this comic from 1966 of the Joker. Like, no, his outfit is even different. The paint on his face is different. Like he is different. It's not about baiting people with nostalgia. Like, I still think it's a bad movie and it's a bad version of the Joker. But like when people saw it, they saw it because they liked the movie and they liked the themes of it, the story of Arthur Fleck, and all of that stuff. But I'm like, and even now, like there have been some people who have been more critical of Joker since then, but overall, people still look back on it fondly. Deadpool and Wolverine, after a same number of years, is not going to be looked on as fondly. Most people are going to look at it, they're like, that was a thing, and then they're going to be apathetic towards it. The average.
It happened with No Way Home. People look back at No Way Home as, average at best and just shallow fan service extravaganza that made little to no sense. And like I said in my video, like sidestepping from Joker for just a moment, like you look at movies like again, Top Gun Maverick and Avatar: The Way of Water, which I mean, Cool Man hasn't seen Top Gun Maverick. He doesn't like Avatar: The Way of Water. I love both of those films. If you look at the domestic box office at this point throughout its release, both Top Gun Maverick and Avatar: The Way of Water are making more domestically, at the current point throughout their release cycles as opposed to Deadpool and Wolverine, because there was more longevity and rewatchability to those movies because people were getting a much more fulfilling experience from them other than a fan service highlight reel. Yeah. That's why Deadpool and Wolverine did so well, was because they had so much invested in their marketing and their bait that the box office opening dwarfs Top Gun Maverick, dwarfs Avatar: The Way of Water, and dwarfs fucking Joker. But all three of those movies were making more return on investment.
Yeah. Well, and also with Top Gun Maverick, it's the fact that it was also a sequel made over 30, 40-ish years after the original. And those people are always really hesitant about those. So the fact that it was good enough to get people to come back and watch it and tell other people to watch it, which is why it made so much money for being a traditional movie. It's got the heroes. Yeah, and it has characters from the original movie. Of course, it's a sequel. But it doesn't simply rely on, they gather all the actors back from the original that they can. It's like, no, it's just, this is a movie. You've got Maverick. He's, got all these other kids he's mentoring because he's now the older figure, the mentor character. And he's teaching them. They go through their character development. They have their heroics. And it's very traditional. It's very simple. It's not trying to step it up with like freaking Independence Day 2, where everything is now super ultra high tech. It's like, no, it's just a simple movie. It takes place several decades later. And now it's Like, and it's not even like they have a massive, gigantic global war they're stopping. There's no aliens invading. It's just a very simple, relatively low stakes conflict, like the original.
Yeah.
Like the original didn't have a big stakes in the conflict. Sure, there was the
No.
droppings of the Cold War era in the 80s, but like, yeah, it didn't have to do anything. And I think that's what makes Top Gun Maverick so impressive, is that
Yeah.
didn't they didn't like try to trick it up, and people like that. They like seeing just a simple movie that's fun.
Well, you know what's funny? I had one comment on my video actually that said, "Oh, well, Avatar: The Way of Water and Top Gun Maverick were just as nostalgia baiting as Deadpool and Wolverine was, so I should have chosen better examples." Yeah, I know exactly, right?
Well, like okay, I want to break that down. First of all, Avatar 2 is a sequel to a movie that came out 14 years before it. So it's
13,
like 13, yeah. So it's like, okay, so it's what, nostalgia for a decade and a half, and then Top Gun Maverick, yeah, there's nostalgia in it being Top Gun and it being one of the most iconic movies of the 80s. But like outside of a character, like wasn't Val Kilmer in that for a bit?
Briefly, very
briefly, but like
he had an accident. Did you know about Val Kilmer's health?
Yeah, I know about that. But like you had like, it's not like they didn't sit here and like, for example, wasn't one of the characters Goose's son?
Yeah, he was the main secondary character.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and like it's the fact of that makes sense of this is the son of his best friend who he's mentoring, and that's where you have like the crux of the story coming in, and that's what people feel like. But like they didn't sit here and just completely rehash everything from the original movie. They didn't bring in all the actors just for the sake of having them show up. It's nostalgic in its existence because it's a sequel, but it's not. They didn't sit here and bait stuff. They didn't, like, imagine if they brought in Arnold Schwarzenegger and Sylvester Stallone and other 80s action heroes and stuff, and Jean-Claude Van Damme, just for the sake of like sort of winking at the audience going, you remember these guys from the 80s.
Well, that's basically what the Expendables was, actually.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's it, and that's the entire premise of the Expendables.
Yeah, that's true. That's why people like it. Like, it wasn't like trying to be anything else.
Yeah,
it was like, this is an ensemble from this is a love letter to the 80s action era. We're bringing in an ensemble. We're going to shoot shit up, and people. And I mean, I went for it. I watched the first two Expendables films, and I really enjoyed both of them, despite the fact that they were quite shallow, actually. But
well, yeah, and like they're meant to be like, and that's why they had in the second one they had Chuck Norris show up, blow up a bunch of tanks, drop a Chuck Norris joke, and then leave without explaining why he was there. And it's like, and like that's the funny thing, is they were just simply acknowledging the Chuck Norris jokes and how Chuck Norris was this unstoppable god of destruction who just came in to help them out, to give them a little breather room, and then he left. And it's like, no, it's like, that's the kind of humor. It's why when Arnold and Bruce Willis, he's like, Arnold's like, I'll be back, and Bruce Willis is like, no, you're always coming back. I'm gonna be back. And I'm like, it's meant to be just cheesy, silly stuff. It's not meant to be all that deep. I mean, there's a serious story, evil terrorists doing bad stuff, but like, in terms of
that's like the backdrop of what's going on.
Yeah,
but like
it's meant to be over the top action, muscly, middle-aged men with giant guns blowing stuff up like awesome dudes. It's like, but I'm like, that's the thing is, but unlike that, but when going just tying everything back to Deadpool, it's like, it is relying not just on nostalgia with Deadpool, but also just taking in dozens of other movies worth of nostalgia and trying to bait the audience with all of these appearances of characters. And that's what it relied on. As we've gone through this pretty, I wouldn't say thoroughly, but we've talked about the story, and what little there is, it's so paper thin. Yeah. And it's literally just running from one cameo to the next. But it's not even self-aware enough to be funny, because it tries so hard to be like, wow, look how much Disney owns. Isn't Disney great? This is the sacred timeline. Isn't Kevin Feige great? I matter now because I get to, because I'm being honored by the MCU. And it's like,
dishonored, but
yeah. Dishonor on you, dishonor on your cow.
And well, I think we've covered all of the bases of why this movie is so shallow, vapid,
and
just
frankly,
a big fat
kind
nothing
of
burger,
insulting.
really.
Yeah, and the thing is with the hours we spent recording this, we're still not even a fraction. We didn't even delve into all the stuff. Like, there are so many details. There are pointless, dumb cameos of characters who appeared that we didn't talk about. Juggernaut shows up. Azazel shows up. Like, and they're there.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it's like, and it's just kind of like, oh my gosh, like with the few, like, so we've spent 3 hours just talking about this. This will get edited down, obviously.
Yeah.
But we still have only covered like the major stuff. Like, we haven't delved into the nitty gritty.
Exactly.
We'd be here all day if we did that, which is why we're not going into it.
That's why this has been pre-recorded, so we can break it down and be as concise as we can and not be interrupted. And I mean, hopefully we didn't. I think we allowed each other to have our says. I mean, we agreed on most things, didn't agree on everything, but despite our disagreements, we still come to a very similar conclusion, and we let each other talk and we let each other get their perspective out, and we weren't constantly stepping on each other's toes. And I hope that this was a much better viewing experience than if we did this on stream, where it wouldn't have been as concise as doing it in this kind of format. So again, let us know if you enjoyed this format better, of kind of doing a post-mortem movie review / discussion between the two of us. Deadpool and Wolverine, I mean, Cool Man hated everything about it, basically. I enjoyed some things about it. I still stand by everything I said in my video. No, the Gambit fucking story for why Channing Tatum is in there. That doesn't make the fucking movie any better. It doesn't, I mean, to be fair, it doesn't make it any worse. It just doesn't make it any better. So I don't know why the fuck so many people are leaning on that. But it just goes to show they don't have dick all to argue with against our point, which is that Deadpool and Wolverine, despite being a likable movie, it is designed to be a very surface level, likable movie, is also a complete fucking trash fire and a writing nightmare that pales in comparison to the previous 2 Deadpool films for a myriad of different reasons. 2 films that I personally adore and 2 films that he hates because he's the hate man, but he acknowledges are way fucking better than this.
At least they put it.
Piece of shit.
At least they put in maximum effort.
At least they put in maximum effort. All right, guys. Thank you very much for joining us. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Let us know if you liked this new format. Let us know if you'd like us to do this for any other movies or television shows. Please don't ask us to cover the fucking Acolyte.
I don't want to watch it.
I don't want it. I never have.
I'm not strong enough.
I mean, but you can guess what we'd have to say on that. I mean, Cool Man's told me a few things about the Acolyte, and all I could do is laugh.
I know enough to know it sucks. I'm not going to sit down and actually watch it.
Yeah, no, I mean, look, I don't want to turn this into an Acolyte discussion, but yeah. Thanks for tuning in, guys. We will see you next time. Take care.
All right.